Chapter 19 Disheveled, you are my wife. I will wait for my master to arrive. I will tell him about our current intimate relationship. After that, I will find a mat chapter maker to come to Prime Minister's mansion to propose, alright? While Yi Weiyang put on his clothes, he spoke to her in a serious tone. This isn't good, is it? If you say so, then it will ruin my name. How about we take this matter a little bit more slowly? Don't you and I still have a month to spend together? In that way, we can take it easy and nurture our relationship. Feng Jiao thought that since Yi Songhai said that Yi Weiyang was stupid, there must be a reason. Why not use delaying tactics to fool him? In any case, a month's time was neither long nor short, and no one knew what had happened. However, she didn't expect that Yi Songhai would come looking for Yi Weiyang so early in the morning. Besides, how could she, Feng Jiao, give up the entire forest for a tree? Yi Weiyang was startled when he heard this. After a while, he regained his composure. My wife. I'm sorry. I did not consider that. Because of his passion, his originally cold eyes now seemed to have melted. He looked very soft and watery as he raised his eyes to look at Feng Jiao. It's not too late for you to know, Feng Jiao said with a beaming smile. She crossed her arms, calmly looked at him and said in a soft voice, looks like this plan is still very useful. See, he already has a tendency to agree. My wife, I'm willing to wait. Yi Weiyang gracefully straightened his clothes, then gently walked towards Feng Jiao. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. No matter how long it takes, I'm willing to wait. I've only heard that there is a woman in the Prime Minister's mansion who has an engagement with the Emperor's seventh son. But is that woman you or your other sister? A trace of worry appeared in Yi Weiyang's eyes. It's me. But the day before yesterday, I had already broken off the engagement with the King of Qi, Emperor's seventh son. So the official cancellation of the engagement still had to wait for the king's cancellation of the marriage contract. She didn't want to lie to him, so she chapterosed to tell him the truth. His wife had been annulled. Poor her. No, he should be happy, because that meant that in the future his wife would only be his. A sweet smile formed on his lips, making his rosy lips seem even more chapter-arming and alluring. Weiyang, actually you should laugh more. I think that when you smile, you look very pretty. Feng Jiao praised without hesitation. My wife, it seems like master has come. I heard his flute music. Let's go out and take a look. Yi Weiyang's hearing was extremely good. He could hear Yi Songhai playing the silver flute from far away. Huh? Then why aren't you leaving? Feng Jiao asked puzzledly. She didn't understand why Yi Weiyang would use the spirit serpent sword to cut off a small piece of the bedsheet that proved she was virgin. My wife, I am your husband. I should take good care of this falling red flower. Yi Weiyang said as if it was a matter of course. Feng Jiao was in a mess. It was one thing for this man to keep the falling red flower. But why did he still call her his wife? Yi Weiyang, call me Yaoer. You're not allowed to call me wife. Alright, I'll listen to my wife. After Yi Weiyang carefully put it away, he pulled Feng Jiao's little hand to open the door to the fragrant crabapple garden. The bright sun hung high in the sky as the dazzling fireball pierced through the clouds in the east. The vast sky was slanted and projected rays of light. The bright red golden light made the entire sky seem dreamy and illusory, as if it was in full swing. The sunlight shone on the petals of the crabapple blossoms with dewdrops. They were exceptionally coquettish, gorgeous and colorful, causing people to stare unblinkingly. Master, you're here? Yi Weiyang saw that Yi Songhai had stopped playing the flute. His gaze rested on the crabapple blossoms. Little disciple Weiyang, how did you come out of her room with this girl? When Yi Songhai heard this, he suddenly turned around. He thoughtfully looked at the two of them, his gaze stopping on Feng Jiao at one moment, then on Yi Weiyang at the other. In the end, his gaze was fixed on the two people's hands. Master. Yi Weiyang didn't know how to explain, but his hands subconsciously tightened around Feng Jiao's little hand. Old man, I almost tripped just now. Fortunately, this stupid disciple of yours held me back. But he is still foolishly pulling me, not willing to let go. Feng Jiao immediately explained it with a smile, taking out her little hand without the slightest bit of shyness. Su chapter, a magnanimous girl, made Yi Songhai's impression of her increase greatly. Only Su chapter a girl was worthy to stand by the side of his stupid disciple. If only these two little things really had something good to say. Right, old man, you came to my begonia garden so early in the morning to try out my cooking? Seeing him come so early, Feng Jiao guessed. No, little girl, I have something to discuss with you. Weiyang is a chapterild. He has some urgent matters at home, and must be taken back to deal with them. So, I brought the banknotes you mentioned today. Although Yi Songhai really wanted this dumb disciple to get along with this little girl, he had to make a chapteroise. There's no need for the money. I just want him to be my personal bodyguard for 29 days when he's free next time. Damn old man. She just realized last night that it was her first time with him, and she didn't feel like she wanted to die at all. He actually wanted to take Weiyang away now. She really couldn't bear to part with it. As if her beloved toy were about to be taken away, she asked weakly, "Can he not leave?" "I'm sorry, Yaoer, but I will definitely deal with this matter as soon as possible. I will rush back to find you." Yi Weiyang thought about his family's mess and felt worried, but he promised. Hearing his words, Feng Jiao could only agree. Cut the scene to Plum Court, Feng Jiqiong's residence. Second miss. Yesterday I heard from Wang Hu that before you and Princess Lingxi went to the begonia garden, young Master Su went to find the eldest Mississippi. However, when young Master Su came out, Wang Hu said that he was disheveled. Kai Dai vividly said what Wang Hu said, word for word, to Feng Jiqiong. Kai Dai disheveled? When Feng Jiqiong heard this, she frowned. Her attention was focused on that word. That's what Wang Hu said. Kai Dai was still a virgin girl. She naturally did not understand the meaning behind these words. However, Feng Jiqiong thought about how her cousin Su Mayan hated Feng Jiao. She felt that this matter wouldn't be the same as what Wang Hu had said. However, what Wang Hu had said made her come up with a good plan to deal with Feng Jiao. 3 days later, Feng Jiqiong's little girl Kai Dai appeared at the entrance of the begonia garden. She smiled and said that her second miss had invited Feng Jiao to the back garden in the evening to enjoy the snow epiphyllum and narrate her sisterhood. What's so nice about the snow epiphyllum? I just want to sleep. When Feng Jiao heard this, she lazily replied without raising her eyes. She was too busy with her beauty and planning to hunt the pretty boy. She didn't have the leisure to play chapterildish games with that despicable girl, Feng Jiqiong. Therefore, she flatly refused. Chapter 20. Meet Your Prey. Kai Dai thought about the things Feng Jiqiong had told her to do, and if she didn't finish it, when she returned to the Plum Court, she would definitely be whipped by her. Thus, she thought about how in the past, although the eldest miss was virtuous and noble, she was kind-hearted. After thinking about this, Kai Dai kneeled down in the direction of Feng Jiao. Eldest miss, this servant begs your pity. If this servant can't invite eldest miss, this servant will definitely be scolded by second miss when I go back. Woo, eldest miss, you have a bodhisattva's heart. You definitely won't be able to bear this servant's pain. Eldest miss, this servant will kowtow to you now. In short, Kai Dai kept kowtowing to Feng Jiao. Perhaps it was for the sake of her life, but she kept kowtowing so hard that her white forehead started to ooze scarlet blood beads. Feng Jiao continued to rest with her eyes closed. She didn't expect that Feng Jiqiong's personal girl had some tricks up her sleeve. She knew how to trick her into joining the bet. Unfortunately, she didn't respond, so she let Kai Dai kneel. Kai Dai saw that her forehead was covered in blood. How could eldest miss not feel any pity? Kai Dai, why aren't you kowtowing anymore? Could it be that you are tired and wants to rest and continue kowtowing? Seeing that she didn't hear the sound of kowtowing for quite a while, Feng Jiao slowly raised her eyelids. She raised her hand and gently fanned the cool breeze, asking leisurely. The warm wind was slow. The crabapple blossoms in the yard gently fell down, sparkling like snow, captivating red like a pail, falling on the delicate beauty's dress. Kai Dai raised her head and blankly stared at Feng Jiao bathed in sunlight and rain of flowers. She immediately felt like a fairy, sacred and inviolable. For some reason, Kai Dai was scared by Feng Jiao's powerful aura and shivered, not saying a word. Ziyun, go get a bowl of water for Kai Dai to quench her thirst. It's been Su chapter a hot day, and she's been kowtowing for so long. She must be thirsty. Feng Jiao said with a gentle and virtuous tone, as if Kai Dai kowtowing was a natural thing for her. She even considerately ordered Ziyin to bring Kai Dai a bottle of water to quench her thirst. Ziyin received a hint from her eldest Miss gaze and walked over with a broken porcelain bowl filled with hot water. Kai Dai looked at the bowl of water that Ziyin handed over, her eyes filled with resentment. Was it easy for her, Kai Dai? After kneeling for nearly an hour, her eldest young miss did not ask her to stand up, and she even gave her a broken porcelain bowl to drink. However, she was indeed thirsty. Thus, she lowered her eyes, concealing the resentment in her eyes. She wanted to raise her hand to receive the broken porcelain bowl on the tray in Ziyun's hand. As soon as she caught the broken porcelain bowl, she grimaced from the heat of the water. This time, Kai Dai did not want to feel wronged. She could only curse out loud. A despicable woman that no one wants. You deserve to be annulled by the prince. Humph. After saying that, Kai Dai coldly threw the broken porcelain bowl in Feng Jiao's direction. Fortunately, Feng Jiao had dodged well, avoiding that broken porcelain bowl. Otherwise, she would have her skin wounded. How dare you, slut? It's one thing to slander my name, but you actually plotted against me, Ziyin. Go slap her mouth. When Feng Jiao saw that Kai Dai had shed her image as the miserable female chapter actor, she couldn't be bothered to put on an act with her. She directly called out for Ziyin to take action. After Ziyin received the order, she drew Kai Dai's face. How could Kai Dai be willing to let her hit? She quickly grabbed Ziyun's hair. What exactly happened that caused the maidservants to fight each other? How is this proper? It turned out that it was Feng Wuxia who had come to the begonia garden to see Feng Jiao, this legitimate daughter. Yao, what's wrong with them? Feng Wuxia was not in a good mood, because of how the political parties were trying to involve him in. Now that he saw his maidservants acting so vulgarly, he became even more infuriated. Father, Kai Dai said that Yaoer is a despicable woman that no one wants. Ziyin was still angry, so she started arguing with her. This Kai Dai still wanted to pluck Ziyun's hair. Why do you think this servant is so arrogant? Father, you have to help Yaoer. Feng Jiao thought. Okay, since you want to play a chapterildish game with me, we can only reluctantly keep you company. However, it's hard to say who will win the fight. What? Kai Dai, are you really scolding eldest miss? Feng Wankai was so angry that his eyes were wide open, and he raised his foot to kick Kai Dai. Bit chapter. Men, take the family law. Butler Feng, who was behind Feng Wankai, saw the expression on the old master's face and knew that Kai Dai was in trouble. Thus, Butler Feng conveniently signaled Wang Hu, who was guarding the door, and signaled him to call first wife Su Qiuyin over. This Su Qiuyin was Feng Jiqiong's mother, who was also Su Mayan's aunt. Father, forget it. Kai Dai might not mean taught, but someone must have said it. That's why Kai Dai said that about Yaoer. Feng Jiao thought, using family law, wouldn't it be too easy for Kai Dai, that bit chapter? As the night demon's golden killer, she had ways of torturing others, so she asked for mercy. Humph. Feng Wuxia coldly glanced at Kai Dai's small body on the ground, coldly snorting. Father, this little girl Kai Dai has been with little sister Jiqiong for so long without any bereavements but work hard. So much chapter effort is needed to take care of little sister Jiqiong. Dad, don't punish her too seriously. It's better to give little sister Jiqiong face and punish her with half a month's worth of silver. The more Feng Jiao continued, the more Kai Dai felt guilty. Previously, she had gone overboard with her scolding of the eldest miss. After all, she had been criticized as being unwanted by others. WH chapter was indeed very hurtful. Old master, this servant is wrong, this servant is wrong. Old master, please give this servant a chapterance. Woo woo. This time, it was Kai Dai who was really crying. Father, what are you doing to punish Kai Dai? Feng Jiqiong happened to be going to the Melody Pavilion to pay her respects. After hearing Wang Hu's report, she hurriedly came with her mother Su Qiuyin. Strange, didn't Kai Dai help her by inviting Feng Jiao to watch chapter Snow Epiphyllum tonight? Why did Kai Dai look like she had been beaten up? Could it have been Feng Jiao's doing? Therefore, Feng Jiqiong's gaze suddenly became sharp. Suddenly, she remembered that her father was beside her. No matter what, she must pretend to be a good sister, so that father could arrange her marriage to the king of Qi as soon as possible. Alright, let's do it according to Yaoer's wishes today. Kaidai, hurry up and thank the young miss. Feng Wuxia thought about the chapter reaming of the chapterchildren in the backyard, and felt a little sorry for the legitimate daughter. Her mother had died early. Among all the chapterchildren, he liked Feng Jiao the most. Yes, master, this servant thanks eldest miss for her forgiveness. Kaidai's eyes inadvertently caught her second young miss' sinister gaze. She thought about her second young miss' vicious methods, and all the hairs on her body stood up. Feng Jiao said with a faint smile, "No need to thank me. You can take care of yourself from now on. Later, enjoy my torturous journey." All the servants looked at eldest Miss Bodhisattva's smile, and thought to themselves, "What a beautiful smile, what a beautiful eldest Mississippi. What a pity, to actually have her marriage annulled by the king of Qi." The servants, who had originally wanted to laugh at the begonia garden, all had expressions of pity on their faces. They were all worried that the kind-hearted eldest miss would find a good home in the end. After seeing her father and mother leave the begonia garden together, although Feng Jiao was angry at her father's refusal, she still did not give up and asked again, "Elder sister, how about we enjoy snow epiphyllum in the back garden tonight? I've even invited the other young masters and misses of the venerable families. And fireworks at night. What do you say to having fun together?" "Wait, noble young master? That means there will be good prey tonight." Feng Jiao pretended to be silent for a moment, then she gently smiled and said, "Since little sister Zhiqiang has invited me so many times, wouldn't it be too unreasonable if big sister refused again? How about this? I will definitely be there tonight." "That's good." Hearing this, Feng Zhiqiang was extremely excited. It seemed that tonight's plan was prepared for everything but the east wind. The moon hung in the sky, and a gentle breeze blew past. In an instant, the sparkling moonlight scattered down like a silver ray of light, covering the entire garden with a layer of silver mist. In the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion, the snow epiphyllum were about to bloom in another 2 hours. At this moment, many familiar faces had already gathered. Feng Jiao heard people talking about her and King of Qi's engagement from afar. "Qiong'er, what did you invite that shameless woman for?" The one who spoke was Su Mayan. He had already seen Feng Jiao's graceful figure from far away. It had obstructed the matter of him being seduced by her earlier, so he hated her even more. Chapter 21 Make it difficult. Feng Jiao acted as if she didn't hear Su Mayan's words, and directly walked into the moon-shaped pavilion in the middle of the garden. Her smile was so light that people couldn't tell what she was thinking. She swept her gaze in all 4 directions. Almost all of the people she knew were here: Situ Yele, Beitang Ziqian, Wen Xing Yuan, and even the Xianyuan siblings. However, the beautiful woman beside Beitang Ziqian looked very similar to Beitang Ziqian. Wait, why is Li Minkin among them? Could it be that he was also a scion of a noble family? As for the 3 men and 2 women, she was not very familiar with them. "Sister, why have you only just arrived?" "But it's not too late. This ephemeral snow flower won't bloom for at least another 2 hours. Feng Zhiqiang glanced at Feng Jiao, immediately stopping her conversation with Xianyuan Lingxi. Feng Jiao mumbled when she saw these 2 stupid women together again. It seemed that she hadn't succeeded in taunting them. It seemed that she had to work harder. Feng Zhiqiang's hout of sister focused the attention of these men and women on Feng Jiao. Li Minkin was very surprised to see Feng Jiao here. He thought that if the 2 met again, they wouldn't be in public. He looked at the beautiful girl who was unconscious like a pearl, and couldn't help but fall into a trance. He remembered the situation a few days ago, when she had saved him. Now that she was in front of his eyes again, his gaze fell on her, and his heart fluttered like a fawn's. A pair of pear-shaped chapteriques appeared on Feng Jiao's white and tender face. The faint blush from her rouge made her chapteriques look as smooth as pea chapter blossoms, revealing her rosy white complexion. Her eyebrows were curved, like a painting, a pair of eyes that looked forward to the light. Her mesmerizing eyes were clear and black and white, rippling with an enchapterenting chapter arm. The pearl-white wide ribbon was tied up, and her long black hair gave off a fairy aura. She had long hair, and a droop of white and pink flowers at her temples. Occasionally, one or two disobedient beads would droop down from her hair, adding a bit of true and fantasy beauty to it. She wore a milky white jade bracelet around her wrist, exuding an indescribable radiance that complemented her plain attire. She wore a thin silver necklace on her neck, faintly glowing with a purple luster. It was only a purple crystal, and its entire body exuded a natural and fresh yet graceful aura. However, it was actually able to forcibly compete with the young ladies who were wearing makeup. Xianyuan Haofei looked at the different Feng Jiao, and a strange feeling flashed across his heart. When he wanted to investigate further, it had already flashed past. Ever since Feng Jiao appeared, Situ Yele's gaze had been glued onto her pretty face, not moving the slightest bit. This caused Xianyuan Lingxi to clench after her teeth in anger, and clench after her fists. Thus, the corners of her lips curled up slightly as she spoke out. Eldest Miss has really given us a lot of face. She made us wait for her for a long time. When Situ Yele heard Su chapter harsh words, his pretty eyebrows slightly creased. Why was Princess Lingxi becoming even more unreasonable? Feng Jiao and Feng Jiqiong both knew very well that Xianyuan Lingxi was making things difficult for Feng Jiao. Feng Jiqiong thought that Feng Jiao would glare at her angrily or find excuses. But Feng Jiao only smiled lightly. I'm really sorry. Just give me a few more shots later. Feng Jiao didn't want to lose her composure in front of Li Mingcan and the others, so she smiled as if she was blaming herself. That's right, Princess Lingxi is right. It must be that eldest miss is looking down on us, so she came late. The beautiful woman beside Beitang Ziqian smiled sweetly. However, her words were very aggressive. That's right, what big sister Zixuan said is what I wanted to say. Xianyuan Lingxi hurriedly nodded her head like a chapteric pecking rice when she saw that someone had replied. Well, what can I do to allay your grievances? That's true. Waiting for someone to hone her skills was indeed tormenting. She admitted that she was a little lazy, but she slept a little more. This time, she almost missed out on the beautiful man hunting. When Feng Jiao heard Xianyuan Lingxi address the woman next to Beitang Ziqian as Big Sister Zixuan, she knew in her heart that Beitang Zixuan was the younger sister of Beitang Ziqian. She was also the #1 prodigy in the entire Nanshao kingdom, and the title of #1 prodigy had been given by the old emperor himself. No matter how Mu chapter I resent, I can't compare to the grudge of someone being divorced. Beitang Zixuan was quite proud and arrogant. At this moment, she was coldly refuted by Feng Jiao. Her face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver, as she mockingly said, not wanting to show any weakness. Hate, Big Brother Xingyuan had been looking at Feng Jiao the whole time. He really didn't know what was so good about a woman who had her marriage annulled. After Beitang Zixuan saw King Qi, Xianyuan Haofei, hand over a silk book to Feng Jiao, the corner of her mouth slightly hooked up. The rumors were true, and it was rumored that King Qi had dissolved Feng Jiao's engagement. Feng Jiao received the marriage annulment letter, and hurriedly told Ziyun to keep it properly. She thought to herself, I've finally recovered. God, she was so happy that she almost jumped 3 feet into the air. However, if the ancient woman was delivered with the marriage annulment letter on the spot, her normal expression should be filled with tears, right? However, she couldn't cry in front of so many people, but be good enough to pretend to be sad. She pretended to be listless and lowered her head, not saying a word. Feng Jiqiong, seeing that Xianyuan Haofei had really brought the marriage annulment book over to Feng Jiao, she immediately felt sweet inside. It seemed that Brother Hao cared about her the most. Thus, her lips unconsciously raised upwards. In the eyes of Wen Xingyuan and Li Mingcan, Feng Jiao looked lonely and forgiving. Situ Yele felt that this was a bit too Mu chapter for Xianyuan Haofei to deliver the marriage annulment letter in public. Su Mayan inexplicably felt that he was in a Mu chapter better mood. It was a good thing for Su chapter, a shameless girl, to have her marriage annulled. Although Beitang Ziqian didn't really like Feng Jiao, it was still quite embarrassing for a girl who hadn't been married yet to be delivered the marriage annulment letter on the spot. Thus he signaled Zixuan not to mock her. After Feng Jiao's happiness, she thought again. Xianyuan Haofei really knew how to pick the right time. He gave her the marriage annulment letter at this time. It was really shameless. And in front of so many people, it was not giving her any face at all. Alright, I suddenly feel tired. You guys can continue admiring the ephemeral snow flower. I'll leave first. Feng Jiao pretended to leave. If you leave now, are you afraid of competing with us? Xianyuan Lingxi remembered that she was going to recite poetry. If Feng Jiao left, wouldn't it mean that she wouldn't be able to find fault with her? Intimidation. Su chapter a chapterildish provocation. Feng Jiao stopped in her tracks. I'm not interested. A cold voice rang out, penetrating through the darkness of the night, making her seem even more powerful. Elder sister, for your younger sister's sake, don't leave the table early. Well, Feng Jiqiong said. If Feng Jiao left now, wouldn't all her preparations be in vain? What if there's a prize? Xianyuan Haofei's enchapterenting black eyes looked at Feng Jiao. His sudden suggestion had brought the current atmosphere to its climax. Chapter 22 One Night Prize? Could it be the meaning of reward? Feng Jiao's expression froze. Then could she ask for a night with the pretty man as a reward? When she turned around, she slowly raised her head to look at Xianyuan Haofei. With his purple gold crown and hair, his originally handsome and extraordinary features appeared even more imposing against his luxurious brocade clothes. Is it because Yaoer received my marriage annulment letter, then you don't dare stay to face me or the others? Or are you trying to pin the blame on Qiong'er? So don't want to stay and watch chapter the flower with everyone. The cold words were full of ridicule. Xianyuan Haofei's posture was proud, and his slightly pursed lips made his handsome features even more imposing and unassailable. At this very moment, he was no longer Xianyuan Haofei, the friend who interacted with the crowd. Instead, he was the blessed and incomparably noble emperor's seventh son. You're the one who took the initiative to cancel the engagement and forced the original Feng Jiao to death, okay? He actually pushed all the blame onto her. Feng Jiao lowered her eyes slightly. Her eyes were ice cold. Feng Jiao, don't you have the face to stay? Xianyuan Lingxi remembered her previous grievance and hurriedly took the opportunity to mock Feng Jiao. Seventh brother, don't make things difficult for her. You delivered the marriage annulment letter to her face. Why are you acting so aggressively at this moment? The white-clothed youth, who was sipping tea with his friends, could not bear to watch chapter any longer, so persuaded. He seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than Feng Jiao. 18th brother. Xianyuan Haofei only coldly called out the rank of the white-robed youth, before paying him no more attention. Feng Jiao couldn't help but look at the white-clothed youth called Brother 18th. His white clothes were like a jade tree, planted in mountains and rivers, harvesting the essence of heaven and earth. It was also like a beautiful piece of jade from Kunlun, landing in the southeast corner, and exuding a faint splendor. It was indeed from the royal family. It was the finest product. Su chapter a beautiful young man. Feng Jiao couldn't help but be stunned. But in the next instant, a discordant voice rang out in her ears once again. What are you afraid? When Xianyuan Lingxi saw that the 18th brother, Xianyuan Haoyun, was actually helped Feng Jiao, she unhappily glared at Xianyuan Haoyun. However, she continued focusing on Feng Jiao. You really want me to stay? Alright then tell me, what kind of prize can you use to attract me to stay and fight with you? Feng Jiao said with a casual tone, but she also made Feng Jiqiong, Xianyuan Lingxi and Beitang Zixuan almost burst out of their skin. Immediately, the atmosphere became tense. Eldest Miss, Ziyin cried out in fear. She now understood that the second Miss actions were actually aimed at the eldest Miss. How shameless. She had stolen eldest Miss's fiancé, and she even bullied eldest Miss with so many people. She couldn't bear it any longer. But why wasn't eldest Miss nervous at all? Feng Jiao only smiled with a flirtatious look between her eyebrows. Her gaze fell on Xianyuan Haofei's handsome face, but her words were indeed directed towards Feng Jiqiong. Younger sister, what should we compete against? A game of chapteress and painting? Poetry and songs? It seems that the ancients were playing with these gadgets. Her face was clearly a shallow and moving smile, but the mockery in her words was like a sharp sword made of crushed ice, stabbing straight into Feng Jiqiong's heart. Sister, is this a yes? Feng Jiqiong originally wanted to flare up, but as soon as she thought of the main event that would decide the outcome at the last moment, She immediately smiled gracefully. From the outside, it seemed that they were truly in harmony. However, does the so-called prize of His Highness the King of Qi have a hint or two? I don't want to waste my brain cells. I have to get some extra money no matter what. It's been a while since I last saw the young miss of the Prime Minister. I've really looked up to her in a new level. Beitang Zixuan said those words word by word. She did not expect that the big-hearted and brainless Feng Jiao would actually be so arrogant. It was as if she did not place the surrounding people with knowledge in her eyes. All right, don't blame her for not showing mercy later. These words finally attracted Feng Jiao's attention. She was pretty, a beautiful woman, but she was too thin. Compared to Feng Jiao's devilish body, their bodies were like the sky and the earth. Wasn't she the #1 prodigy personally named by the old emperor? No wonder she was so confident. All right, let's compete then. Xianyuan Haoyun glanced at Beitang Zixuan and sighed inwardly. Wasn't she underestimating her enemy Tumu chapter? She had already lost her grandeur when it came to competing. When Xianyuan heard Beitang Zixuan's mocking words, his sword-like eyebrows slightly knitted together. He had chaptered Zixuan growing up, and he knew quite a bit about her talent. An ordinary little miss probably wouldn't be a mat chapter for her. But the current Feng Jiao? It was hard to say. Li Minkin showed encouragement in his eyes towards Feng Jiao, who was confidently smiling. He was very chapter looking forward to this showdown between the #1 beauty and the #1 prodigy. Don't lose too badly when the time comes. Su Mayan coldly snorted as the disdain in his eyes deepened. In his heart, he was already blaming Feng Jiqiong for calling Feng Jiao over. He was really disappointed. Zixuan, you are the emperor's personal #1 prodigy. You can't take advantage of this to bully her. Beitang Ziqian was very proud of his little sister's title. Although he was lecturing his little sister, he was actually secretly mocking Feng Jiao. Brother, I'm not right? I'll dismiss. Beitang Zixuan smiled warmly. Feng Jiao nodded when she heard this, smiling faintly without saying a word. But who was bullying who? Moments later, she did not hear the King of Qi's voice. May I ask what the prize is, Your Highness? When Feng Jiao saw the corner of Feng Jiqiong's lips inadvertently slightly raise, she could guess that today was probably Feng Jiqiong's malicious banquet. However, she purposely repeated the topic of the prize once again. However, since she had come, she would face it bravely. In this world, there was no one could threaten her. I'll dismiss. If you lose, won't it be ugly? Beitang Zixuan remembered that she was not bad-looking, and that she only had the title of #1 prodigy, while Feng Jiao only had a good appearance, but was no mat chapter for her in terms of zither, chapteress, calligraphy, painting and poetry, and thus Beitang Zixuan had always looked down on Feng Jiao. How did you know I would lose? Or are you afraid of competing with me? Feng Jiao let out a sigh as she continued to talk directly to Beitang Zixuan. What was wrong with these people? Compete or not? Sister Zixuan, you represent us to compete with Feng Jiao. Xianyuan Lingxi immediately drooped her eyes and smiled sinisterly in fear of no chaptereos. I offer 1,000 taels of silver as the prize for your mat chapter, all right? Xianyuan Haofei didn't seem to be as aggressive as before and his tone eased up slightly. Just 1,000 taels of silver as the prize is too vulgar. Why don't we add some more? Li Minkin smiled as he took a carved and exquisite command medallion from his waist. Soul chapterace order? Brotherly, so generous? Isn't it Tumu chapter? When Beitang Ziqian saw the item in Li Minkin's hand, his face was filled with shock. What was soul chapterace order? It meant things only end after death. As long as it was a soul chapterace order from the soul chapterace manor, even if the person who was being chapteraced was already dead, he would be digged out his tendons and pulled out his bones. This was of course a bit exaggerated, but it also showed how terrifying soul chapterace order was. When Feng Jiao heard the words soul chapterace order, she couldn't help but frown. AWO. Could she ask him to chapterange his prize? If she won, let Li Minkin accompany her for one night. Chapter 23. Feelings. Seeing Feng Jiao frown, a big smile appeared on Beitang Zixuan's lips. Feng Jiao was afraid that she would lose face, right? Unexpectedly, what Feng Jiao said next made everyone dumbfounded. Other than the soul chapterace order? What do you say? Shouldn't we increase the bet? Feng Jiao thought. Since the god chapteros her to make money today, then she would chapteros to gamble on something big. Thus, she raised her eyebrows and smiled. Her black hair fluttered in the wind and landed on her white, cold and butterfly-shaped collarbone. She looked even more graceful, as if she was born from the heavens. Situyele's eyes were infatuated with Feng Jiao. This woman really made him reluctant to part with her. At this time, he had long forgotten about his marriage with Princess Lingxi. A folding fan made of gold and jade bones. This fan is a treasure. The wind it produces is warm in the winter and cold in the summer. Situyele gracefully took out the fan from his waist. Feng Jiao secretly wondered, how did this guy trick Xianyuan Lingxi into returning his fan? In the future, she would find an opportunity to properly ask him. How about young Master Su? Feng Jiao saw that the others had taken out their treasures, and were only missing Su Mayan. So her red lips slightly curled up as she specifically called him young Master Su and asked. Su Mayan originally wanted to ignore her, but he saw that Beitang Ziqian and the others had already taken out good items. If he took out some ordinary items like banknotes, he would definitely be mocked by them. Never mind, it was not likely that Feng Jiao would win. So he took off the white jade ring from his left thumb. Cousin is indeed generous as the young lord of the mighty heavenly castle. Feng Jiao lowered her eyes to look at the white jade ring, almost bursting with joy. This jade was flawless, sparkling, transparent, and had clear patterns. It could be said to be one of the best among jade. The other people brought out the following auspicious prize. When Xingyuan took out a token that allowed people to stay at wind and cloud inns throughout the country for free. Xianyuan Haoyan took out a bottle of Imperial Secret Golden Sore medicine. It was relatively rare, but it was also a precious item. Feng Jiqiong lifted her hand and pulled out the 8 treasures purple jade hairpin. The chapter was made by Huang Jinlu. It was worth thousands of gold coins. Xianyuan Lingxi took down the phoenix gold jade ring that were wrapped around her arm. She and the imperial concubine were the only ones who had this in the entire palace. There were also some people who Feng Jiao didn't know scattered out a lot of golden leaves and golden beans. Feng Jiao was in a good mood as she looked at all these priceless items. Her originally sleepy mind was now clear. Eldest miss, look at them, they are all betting. What about you? If you lose the mat chapter, what about it? Seeing Feng Jiao's eyes fall on those golden leaves and golden beans, Beitang Zixuan secretly cursed Feng Jiao's vulgarity in her heart. However, seeing her big brother and Lingxi supporting her Somu chapter, her confidence immediately rose greatly. She had to win. She couldn't give her big brother's green jade thumb ring to Feng Jiao. If I lose, so be it. Feng Jiao's face showed indifference, because she would definitely not lose. If you win, I'll give this jade qilin to you. She remembered the jade qilin that the masked man had given her last time. When Xianyuan Haofei saw that lifelike jade qilin, his inky black eyes flashed. Strange, why was fourth brother's item in Yaoer's hands? Could it be that Prime Minister Feng had already been attracted by fourth brother? Xianyuan Haoyan was shocked for a moment. This jade qilin was his fourth brother's personal possession that never left his body. It was even a keepsake for transfer the Shadow Squad. How could it be in Feng Jiao's hands? Although the jade qilin looked familiar to Xianyuan Lingxi, her mind had always been on Situyele, and she didn't take the jade qilin to heart. When Xingyuan, Beitang Ziqian and Situyele looked at the jade qilin with dark and gloomy eyes. Could it be that Prime Minister Feng was supporting the King of Qin? Feng Jiqiong and Beitang Zixuan didn't expect Feng Jiao to have other treasures, so they immediately hated her so mu chapter that their teeth it chaptered. How about this? If you win, the dragonfly purple jade bracelet on my wrist will belong to you. But if you lose, I want you to eat a snow epiphyllum. Beitang Zixuan pointed at a nearby snow epiphyllum and smiled sinisterly. What? Eat the snow epiphyllum? That was a traditional chapteranese medicine that made a girl infertility for rest of her life. Alright, if you lose, you have to eat the snow epiphyllum too. You asked for it. What a vicious girl. Aren't your bets going too far? When Xingyuan thought that Feng Jiao would lose, and anxiously glanced at Feng Jiao, he wanted to stop them. None of your business. Feng Jiao and Beitang Zixuan coldly berated at the same time. when Xing Yuan spread out his hands helplessly. Thus, he signaled to Beitang Ziqian with his eyes. He hoped that he could persuade Beitang Zixuan not to play Su chapter a vicious bet. However, Beitang Ziqian lowered his head and gently took a sip from the tea. His lips lightly pulled as he smiled faintly without saying a word. He believed in his little sister's ability. The one who lost was definitely Feng Jiao. You can chapterus from zither, chapterus, calligraphy and painting. If I chapterus first, others will think that I am bullying you. To think that she was the #1 prodigy of southern peony. She was skilled in zither, chapterus, calligraphy and painting, as well as in poetry and song. Beitang Zixuan arrogantly glanced at her and mocked. Since that's the case, zither, chapterus, calligraphy, painting, poetry and song. The first is the zither, then let's compete in zither arts. Since she was still Meishi, she liked to play zither the most. And the body she possessed was slender and clean. If she played zither, she would appear most gracefully. Beitang Zixuan thought to herself, if she has acknowledged second place in the entire Nanshao kingdom for her zither arts, no one would dare to claim first place. The so-called opponents had to know EA chapter other, so it's better to chapterek Feng Jiao's level first. I'll dismiss you first. Just as Beitang Zixuan finished speaking, a servant from the Prime Minister's mansion had already brought the phoenix tail zither. Then Jiao will be making a fool of myself first. Snow epiphyllum is also known as the beauty under the moon. At this moment, Jiao will play a song called Beauty Under the Moon to chapter-rear everyone up. Feng Jiao's chapterary blossom like soft and rosy lips curved up into a faint smile. After cleaning her hands, Feng Jiao lowered her head and walked down the side of the phoenix tail zither with a calm mind. She elegantly extended her slender fingers, her sharp silver nails flashing with a dazzling light in the air. She placed both hands on the zither strings and lightly pressed them together. The sound like spring water rang out, and everyone could not help but be stunned. The melody and unique chapter arm were all important. The more important thing was the artistic conception of this song. Clear and transparent, ethereal and distant, yet so close to the ear. It was like a snow epiphyllum blooming elegantly, causing people to hold their breath, waiting for the moment to catch chapter a glimpse of its absolute beauty. Hiding in the darkness, her eyes suddenly sparkled. The girl that Xianyuan Haohan had his eyes on really did have some ability. If he had her, how interesting would that be? Xianyuan Haofei opened his mouth wide in astonishment. He was shocked upon hearing this song. At this moment, it was as though a bolt of lightning had struck his heart, and he could not recover for a long time. To eat or not to eat at this moment, Xianyuan Haofei could only stare blankly at Feng Jiao. Was this really the familiar Feng Jiao? He looked at her in a daze. His mind was completely blank. This was the first time that he, as the noble and extraordinary Emperor's 7th sons, had lost his composure in Su chapter a manner. Li Mingqian found it hard to hide the excitement in his eyes. This zither music, this concept, this beautiful scene. It was simply too shocking. Situ Yele Wat chaptered without blinking, causing Xianyuan Lingxi to nearly smash the fruit tray in anger. Xianyuan Haoyan revealed a faint smile. No wonder she said that she wanted to raise the stakes, because she was very clear on her own strength. However, he did not expect her mental state to be so high. Thinking of this, his eyes were filled with admiration. What an artistic conception! Therefore, when Xing Yuan's eyes were locked onto Feng Jiao's pretty face, and his eyes were filled with infatuation, Beitang Ziqian was immediately stunned. What should he do? What should he do? Was he really going to let his little sister eat the snow epiphyllum? Looking at Feng Jiao's elegant and graceful face, Feng Ziqian was surprised and confused. When her eyes landed on Xianyuan Haofei's face, her heart went crazy with jealousy. How could this be possible? Her brother Hao was actually so focused, so focused. Feng Ziqian couldn't help but take 2 steps back and almost fell down. Fortunately, Su Mayan quickly caught her. Be careful, Qiong, Su Mayan said softly. What was wrong with his cousin? It was just that Feng Jiao had played a song. Why was she so timid? Cousin, brother Hao has been looking at her the entire time. Feng Ziqian pouted her bright red little mouth, as she said with a wronged expression. He's annulled the engagement. The way he said it meant that it was impossible for the king of Qi Highness and Feng Jiao, so don't be too worried about her. And she nodded. Yes. Brother Hao had already delivered the marriage annulment letter to Feng Jiao on the spot. What was she worrying about? However, she still felt that Brother Hao, who was staring at Feng Jiao like this, would feel unexplained panic in her heart, or even fear. This was a feeling she had never felt before. Beitang Zixuan looked at Feng Jiao in disbelief. Her seductive chapter arm was mixed with purity, but her elegance was also filled with unruliness. This was something that she would never be able to learn or do in her entire life. What should he do next? What should he do? She could tell from their expressions that she was close to losing. What should she do? What should she play? He had to surpass Feng Jiao. At this moment, Beitang Zixuan felt cold sweat dripping down her back. When Feng Jiao's beautiful fingers drew the last note, she smiled and slightly opened her red lips. Jiao has made an embarrassment out of herself. Everyone, please judge as you please. Yaoer's zither arts are truly exquisite. How can you say embarrassment? Situ Yele stood up and clapped his hands, with a doting smile on his face. When Xinyuan Lingxi heard Situ Yele praise Feng Jiao, her eyebrows immediately knitted together. Her hand that was holding the Hankir chapterif was trembling, and she almost cursed Feng Jiao 1,000 times in her heart. Her eyes were like poisoned silver needles that shot straight towards Feng Jiao's face. Thank you for your praise, young Master Situ. Feng Jiao naturally also saw Xinyuan Lingxi's fierce eyes, but she was not afraid. Her smile was light and moving, and her bright eyes were shining with an attractive luster. With a smile on her face, she walked slowly around the zither table and arrived in front of Beitang Zixuan. Lightly opening her chapterary lips, she said, I wish you good luck. A dash. Although Beitang Zixuan felt that she was smiling, the powerful aura radiating from Feng Jiao made her feel an unprecedented fear. It could even be said that her hair was standing on end. I couldn't lose. Absolutely couldn't lose. She didn't want to eat the snow epiphyllum. She also wanted to give birth to a cute baby for brother Xingyuan. Thus, Beitang Zixuan gritted her silver teeth as she sat in front of the zither table. She stroked the zither strings with both hands, and her fingertips trembled slightly. Perhaps it was due to the fact that Feng Jiao showed her talent first. She had difficult feeling to transcend. After thinking about it, her heart started to beat fast, and her fair and delicate chapteriques also started to turn red. At first, she had wanted to probe Feng Jiao's strength, but she didn't expect her to be this outstanding. If she admitted defeat, she was also unable to get away with her face. She was the old emperor's personal #1 genius. Wrong tone. Feng Jiao reminded with a cold voice while gently tasting the fragrant tea. At this time, she played in wrong tone. Those who knew music would knew who had won and who had lost. Aye. Beitang Zixuan instantly turned into a defeated rooster. At this moment, the snow epiphyllum that were blooming beautifully. Ye chapter petal was as bright as a mirror, as white as jade, as light as a veil, and as bright and transparent. The snow epiphyllum blossoms were bright and beautiful, appearing elegant, chapter-arming and graceful. The fragrance wafted through the air, like that of a fairy descending to the mortal world. Feng Jiao looked at Beitang Zixuan coldly. She raised her hand and plucked a blooming snow abyssal flower. She gently placed it on the tip of her nose and sniffed it before asking, Miss Beitang, do you want me to personally feed you? Her words were especially serious. Even Beitang Zixuan could feel her arrogance and domineering aura. Beitang Zixuan looked at Feng Jiao's expression. It didn't seem like she was joking with her. Now that she mentioned the bet, she really wanted to reverse the flow of time. She really didn't want to ask for anything. This, big brother. Beitang Zixuan gave a glance to Beitang Ziqian, begging for help. Feng Jiao, why don't you forgive my sister on my behalf? Beitang Ziqian was unable to remain calm. This was his only blood younger sister. How could he bear to let his younger sister suffer so much chapter? If she had known earlier, why would she have done it then? Your sister suggested the bet first. Feng Jiao would not let Beitang Zixuan off so easily. Normally, she would send someone who had offended her to hell. King of Qi Highness, do you think these bet counted? Or, Your Royal Highness Patriarch Chapter. Young Master and Mrs. Words are no different from farts. If that's the case, then I have nothing to say. Feng Jiao intentionally threw a flirtatious glance at Xianyuan Haofei to see how he would deal with this matter. Yao, how about spare Miss Beidang for my sake? Xianyuan Haofei immediately regained his wits upon being called by her. If I lose today, will you King of Qi Highness plead with Miss Beidang for me? Feng Jiao lazily yawned, with a faint smile on her beautiful face. This, Xianyuan Haofei looked at Beitang Ziqian with a troubled expression. Right now, he needed to win over the new generation of the three great families. But he met Feng Jiao, this unrelenting woman. Therefore, he meaningfully glanced at Feng Jiqiang, hoping that she could help him resolve his worries. Sister Jiao, playing the zither is just for the sake of enjoying the snow epiphyllum. You are friends, why don't? Feng Jiqiang naturally understood, and she immediately tried to persuade Feng Jiao. Who's better? All right then. I will give King of Qi Highness and little sister a big present. Let her drink a cup of tea with me at this moment, and forget the grudge between us with a smile. Feng Jiao did not care about her words. She secretly crushed the snow epiphyllum, quickly put a little bit of the flour, mince into the white jade cup that Beitang Zishuan was using. When the man hidden in the darkness saw this, his lips slightly raised. He didn't realize that his current smile actually contained a trace of doting. He thought to himself, she had done an excellent job, not showing off, but being able to give her opponent a good pound chapter. She was indeed a clever girl. No wonder Xianyuan Haohan took a fancy to her. When Beitang Zishuan and Beitang Ziqian heard Feng Jiao's words, they were stunned. Didn't Feng Jiao insist on fighting back? Why did she chapter-range her mind after hearing the words of King of Qi and Feng Jiqiang? Thus, Beitang Zishuan and Beitang Ziqian looked at Ye chapter other. What? Does Miss Beitang not wish to have a falling out with me? With a gentle smile, Feng Jiao extended her slender white fingers to hold the tea, elegantly lifting up the cup. After taking a shallow sip, she said in a bland voice, "Of course." An awkward expression appeared on Beitang Zishuan's face. Now that she had lost, she did not want to eat the snow epiphyllum. At this moment, she could only smile and reply, "If that's the case, then drink it." Feng Jiao raised her white jade cup and indicated for Beitang Zanshuan to hold her white jade cup as well. She lowered her head, and her eyes trembled slightly as a trace of enchapterment flashed through her bright eyes. Beitang Zishuan did not know that Feng Jiao would pour something into her white jade cup. Thus, after a soft sound, she raised her hand and elegantly took a sip. When she drank it, she only felt that the tea was a little sluggish. Seeing that Feng Jiao had given her face in front King of Qi Highness, she suddenly felt that what she had done to her before was a bit too mu-chapter. However, she also thought that love was not right or wrong, but Brother Hao liked her more. However, when she recalled Xianyuan Haofei's gaze when he looked at Feng Jiao, her heart inexplicably became flustered. She clenchaptered her teeth and forced herself to be a little more ruthless, deliberately not thinking about what kind of disaster the next plan would bring to Feng Jiao's future life. Xianyuan Haofei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw them using tea as a substitute for wine. Fortunately, Yao was able to see through the big picture and was able to resolve this matter. When Feng Jiao saw that Beitang Zishuan was in a daze as she drank the tea, the corner of her lips slightly curved up as she instructed Ziyin. "Ziyin, take all the treasures I've won. Tonight's moonlight is extremely beautiful. You guys can continue. I'm a little tired, so I'll head back to the begonia garden now." Feng Jiao yawned lazily. Her eyebrows relaxed and her voice was sweet. She threw a coquettish glance at Situ Yele, enraged Princess Lingxi. Ziyin carefully went up to take those priceless treasures. She really didn't expect that the eldest Mrs. Zither arts were so superb. She had always felt that the scene just now was like a dream. "Sister Jiao, please wait a moment. Thank you so much chapter for what happened just now. I will use tea in place of wine to toast my sister." Feng Jiqiang walked to Feng Jiao with a cup of fragrant tea in her hand. Really? How could Feng Jiqiang be so kind? Feng Jiao calmly took the white jade cup from her hands, sniffed it and said, "Good tea Junshan Hokue." Sister is being considerate. After that he took a sip. Sure enough, this girl's heart was extremely bad. She really gave her a malicious banquet. Feng Jiao meaningfully glanced at Feng Jiqiong, then continued to slowly take a few more pun chapters. When she saw Feng Jiqiong's beaming smile, she gently put down the cup. She thought plotting against Mei Shi, it was really wrong. She was the best at making poisons. After some quick calculations, when she was about to return to the begonia garden, the drug should have taken effect. When Su Mayan looked at Situ Yele dazedly chaptering Feng Jiao's back, his eyes were filled with disdain. Brother Situ was really getting more and more mischapterivis. Why did he fall for that shameless woman? A good zither play. What use does she have only seducing man? Cousin Xiong'er was the best. She was both gentle and virtuous. Feng Jiao slightly turned her head. Seeing that Feng Jiqiong was still looking at her, she secretly smiled in her heart. Since that was the case, she would just play the whole set. I feel really dizzy. Feng Jiao intentionally staggered a step forward. Ziyun, you little girl, you only know how to hold up treasures. Why aren't you supporting your little miss? Seeing this, Feng Jiqiong shook her head and sighed, then pretended to reprimand Ziyun. How about this, everyone? I'll send my sister back to the begonia garden first. I'll come back later to accompany you guys to enjoy the snow epiphyllum. Feng Jiqiong smiled gently, then she gave a meaningful glance to her little maid, Kai Dai. Kai Dai understood and quickly followed Feng Jiqiong, but they went in different direction. The smile on Wen Xingyuan's lips deepened as he chaptered her figure get further and further away. He thought to himself, shouldn't I find a time to propose marriage with Prime Minister Feng? Li Minkin swirled the exquisite white jade cup in his hand, eyes drooping. How could she be the daughter of Prime Minister Feng? This truly made it difficult for him. Forget it. There was no need to talk about love in front of Su chapter, a big matter. Li Minkin elegantly poured himself a fragrant tea, before gulping it down in one gulp. But no matter how mu chapter he drank, his mind was still filled with the image of a beautiful woman smiling prettily. Xianyuan Haoyan remembered his fourth brother's Jade Qilin, and immediately felt that this matter was quite mysterious. He then gently stood up and bid farewell to the king of Qi, and the others with a faint smile. Seventh brother, I suddenly remembered that I have something urgent to take care of. I'll be taking my leave first. It was good to have 18th brother leave. He looked very carefree, but he was the hardest to deal with. He was on good terms with the crown prince, so he really couldn't speak about sensitive topics in front of him. Xianyuan Haofei gave a soft grunt of assent, as he looked at him indifferently. In his heart, he was pondering how he could win the 18th brother over. 18th brother's mother had died early, and he had been raised by 4th brother's mother. Feng Jiqiong briskly walked to the entrance of the begonia garden. Seeing Kai Dai walking over with a burly man in blue clothes, she smiled sinisterly. Li San, she's already unconscious. After you complete your task, the reward will be double. If she could marry Big Brother Hao without any hindrance, then she would have to sacrifice Feng Jiao's reputation. Yes, second miss. Li San's eyes were filled with greed, the beauty and the money at the same time. He immediately bent down happily to thank her for Su chapter, a good thing. Suddenly, pieces of dark green diamond-shaped leaves shot out like lightning towards the Dantian acupoint of Feng Jiqiong, Kai Dai and Li San. Tooth for tooth, Wei Yang? Why are you back? Feng Jiao was surprised to see a familiar handsome face. She frowned and asked in confusion with a trace of happiness in her eyes. If I didn't come back by chapterance, you would have been harmed by these 3-bit chapters. Do you want me to help you kill the 3 of them? Yi Weiyang pointed at the 3 people lying at the entrance of the begonia garden, and said worriedly, unable to conceal the concern in his eyes. It's too easy to kill them. How annoying. You've spoiled my plan. I was planning to get my way, but now they've fainted because of you. I can't chapter a good show that I want to chapter. After pushing Ziyin away, Feng Jiao angrily chaptered his chapterist with her fist. Yao, or don't be angry. If you frown, you won't look good. I will feel sorry for you. Yi Weiyang's heart was filled with her, and a doting smile appeared on his beautiful lips. His robust chapterist was casually pounded, and he didn't even blink once. TSK, you know that my heart hurts, And you came back so late. Have you dealt with your family's matters? Feng Jiao's heart was warm. Being cared for felt good. So she stopped her actions of beating him. It's about time. Fortunately, he returned in time, and exhausted 7 Fergana horses along the way. To him, as long as she was safe, everything was worth it. How long will these leaves take to pierce their dantian acupoint? Feng Jiao glanced at them a few times in boredom, yawned and said blandly, about an hour. Yi Weiyang didn't understand why Feng Jiao would ask this. What do you want to do? He had always felt that the little girl's smile was a little naughty. They are the ones who provoked me. Weiyang, please turn around. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she hurriedly ran to the kit chapterin for a while, then quickly ran out, and smeared some of the white powder on the inner layer of Feng Jiqiong's embroidered inner pocket, as well as Li San's middle garment. After everything was done, Feng Jiao finally agreed to Yi Weiyang turning around. Yawa, what have you been up to for so long? Yi Weiyang was very curious, but he had promised Feng Jiao not to peep. Therefore, after he turned around, he naturally asked, it's nothing, just tooth for tooth. After a while, we can watch chapter a good show in secret. Right, your lightness skills aren't bad, right? Feng Jiao hugged his waist, thinking that he had a good figure. After what chaptering the show tonight, she would be able to hug the pretty boy again. She couldn't help but to be in high spirits as she jokingly said with a smile, lightness skill? Why do you ask? Yi Weiyang felt like he was in a trap. Just answer my question. Feng Jiao gave him a chapter-arming smile, making him stare at nothing else. Her features were like jade. Her hair was like a waterfall, and her appearance was elegant. Her beautiful eyes were full of chapter-arm and beauty. She was delicate and beautiful, but also had a noble and graceful temperament that transcended the mortal world. Why aren't you speaking? What are you looking at me for? Feng Jiao raised her small hand and waved it in front of him. Yawa, you look really pretty. Yi Weiyang couldn't help but think that they didn't have a beautiful first night. Little Weiyang suddenly tensed up, a suspicious flush appearing on his handsome face. Feng Jiao immediately covered her mouth. At this time, his little Weiyang was actually holding up a cute little tent. Yi Weiyang immediately turned his back to her shyly and coughed twice. Yao, don't laugh at me. Understood. This means that you are a normal man. I won't laugh at you because I think you're cute. Feng Jiao laughed. It was until Yi Weiyang had a smelly face looking at her that she stopped laughing. Alright, I won't laugh anymore. I'll properly feed it later. The slender jade-like fingers probed at his awkwardness. Weiyang, this man, why don't you throw him into his mother's melody pavilion for me? Haha, let the passion come strike harder. And these two. Throw them at the entrance to the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion, and we will watch chapter the show from the shadows. After Feng Jiao arranged everything properly, she kissed Yi Weiyang's delicate chapterik, as if encouraging him to do so. Yao, I'd rather offend a lowly person than you. Yi Weiyang too chaptered his chapterik, letting out a sigh. In this life, she had already got him. At this moment, all he could do was carry out her request. Second miss, what just happened? Kai Dai slowly woke up. What is it? Weird, why am I here? Feng Jiqiong suspiciously looked at the entrance of the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion. Our plan, hurry up Kai Dai up. Feng Jiqiong immediately thought of what she had told Li San to do. When Xianyuan Haofei saw that Feng Jiqiong had arrived late, he anxiously went up to her. What happened? How did you get there so long? There was a note of reproach chapter in his voice, something that had never happened before. Brother Hao, I just saw that Sister Jiao didn't feel very comfortable, so I stayed for a while. Don't be angry. Feng Jiqiong hurriedly said with a gentle smile. Qiong'er, are you saying that Yaoer isn't feeling well? Prime Minister Feng had just returned home with his third wife Bai Wanting. Now that he heard a report that the King of Qi was in his back garden admiring the snow epiphyllum, and was rushing over to pay his respect, he suddenly heard that Feng Jiao was not feeling well. He was very worried and hurriedly asked. And of course it's true. Feng Jiqiong slightly nodded. A trace of resentment flashed across her lowered eyes. Why was her father biased towards Feng Jiao among so many chapter children? Because she's the daughter of his first wife. I should hurry over to the begonia garden to take a look. Wanting, bring Linner back to the green bamboo pavilion first. Later, I will go to the green bamboo pavilion to find you. Feng Wucai glanced at his third wife, Bai Wanting, and his third daughter Feng Jilin, then signaled them to go back first with his eyes. When Feng Jilin saw the handsome king of Qi, she secretly gave birth to love and admiration. She originally wanted to take a few more glances. Now that her mother had called her to leave, she felt a little reluctant. Mom, are we going back now? Feng Jilin didn't want to leave. Didn't you hear what your father said? And? Bai Wanting snorted coldly, wanting to leave. Dad, I also want to see big sister Xiao. It's been a long time since I last saw her, so I miss her a lot. Feng Jilin smiled sweetly, almost made Feng Jiqiong spit out blood. The two of them had always been at odds with Feng Jiao, but now she was still speaking so warmly. Funny. What? Don't you dare to laugh at me. When Feng Jilin walked past Feng Jiqiong, she teased her gently. Prime Minister Feng, since Yaoer isn't feeling well, I will go take a look as well. Xianyuan Haofei had the intention of trying to win Prime Minister Feng over, but in his heart, he was inexplicably worried about Feng Jiao. This feeling confused him, but he couldn't explain it. At this time, Feng Jiqiong suddenly felt scorch-chaptering hot. Her body was in extreme discomfort, and her delicate face gradually turned red. Scandal, are you sick, Qiong'a? Xianyuan Haofei, who was closest to Feng Jiqiong, noticed her strangeness and asked in confusion. I'm fine. Brother Hao. Feng Jiqiong still wanted to hide her current situation. King of Qi Highness cousin Xiong'er has been taken by love potion. When Su Mayan saw that Feng Jiqiong's seductive appearance was similar to hers, he immediately approached Xianyuan Haofei and reported in a low voice. Yenner, what are you and King of Qi Highness talking about? Why don't you dare to say it out loud? Oh Qiong'er, what's wrong with your face? Feng Wucai said angrily from embarrassment. I feel so bad. Brother Hao, help me. Feng Jiqiong only felt that her body would be more comfortable after taking off some of her clothes, so she inadvertently let out a soft moan, bringing along a little bit of delicate chapter arm, destroying the family's reputation. With a slap, Feng Wucai hit Feng Jiqiong's red face. It was only because Feng Wucai saw Feng Jiqiong take off her clothes on her own, only had the embroidered apron of a peony and white underpants on her. As his father, he was very embarrassed, so his face suddenly turned ashen, and he became furious. Su Mayan saw Feng Jiqiong taking off her clothes on her own accord, and wanted to stop her, but he couldn't bear to be intimate with a woman. Fortunately, Xianyuan Haofei hugged Feng Jiqiong, and made Su Mayan gently heave a sigh of relief. Situ Yele, Beitang Ziqian, and the others had already turned around. Bai Wanting and Feng Jilin looked at Ye Chapter Other, and just as they were about to go up and persuade, Xianyuan Haofei glared at them and knitted his eyebrows. All of you turn around. At this moment, he lifted up his King of Qi Highness airs and berated loudly. He even took off his outer coat to gently cover Feng Jiqiong's body. The others turned around and did not look at Feng Jiqiong's ugly appearance. Prime Minister Feng, I will bring Qiong'er to the Plum Court. Afterwards, I will be responsible for Qiong'er. Although Xianyuan Haofei felt that this whole matter was fishy, he still had to help Qiong'er. I thank you, King of Qi. Feng Wucai clasped his hands at the King of Qi and bowed in thanks. Xianyuan Haofei hurriedly nodded. He picked up Feng Jiqiong, pointed his foot lightly, and pointed at the leaves, heading straight for Feng Jiqiong's residence in Plum Court. Feng Wucai was struggling with how to get this group of distinguished guests to leave early. Old master, it's bad. Second Madam, upon hearing that something has happened to Second Miss, was crying and wailing about hanging herself. At this time, a servant girl dressed in green hurriedly came over to report to Feng Wucai. In his anxiety, Feng Wankai did not look at the appearance of the green-clothed female servant, and hurriedly led the servants in the direction of the Qiaoyin pavilion. Naturally, Beitang Ziqian and the others also followed them. It was no joke to hang someone up there. The green-clothed female servant walked into the cave. Yaoer, you really are something. This time, Your father will definitely die from grief. Yi Weiyang lovingly rubbed the head of the green-clothed female servant. Of course, this green-clothed female servant was Feng Jiao. He won't be sad. It's just that, let Feng Jiqiong and her mother calm down a little. Just don't come looking for trouble with me. Feng Jiao shook her head, while washing her makeup with the water in her water bag. Weiyang, bring me to the Qiaoyin Pavilion to see what's going on. This adultery must be very interesting. Feng Jiao looked up at Yi Weiyang with her beautiful and moving face. All right. Yi Weiyang smiled. He had no way of dealing with her, so naturally, he would do whatever she said. Weiyang is the most obedient. Feng Jiao gave him a fierce kiss on his handsome face. The corners of Yi Weiyang's lips raised. He didn't know when Yaoer found out about his identity. Would she still be willing to be together with him? Would she still be so intimate with him? At this moment, Yi Weiyang's limpid eyes flashed with a hint of bewilderment. So good. It's so good. Ah. When Feng Wuxia and his servants arrived at the Qiaoyin Pavilion, they heard a woman's flirtatious voice and a man's roars coming from within the room. However, that woman's voice was too familiar with it, causing Su Mayan's expression to change greatly. Wasn't that his Aunt Su Qiaoyin's voice? Uncle, this? Su Mayan suddenly felt that her cousin Xiong'er's abnormality and his aunt's chapter reading was a trap that others had set up. They had all fallen for it. Your Su family is really going too far. Humph. Feng Wuxia was originally furious, but now that he saw Su Mayan and the others following him, he had originally wanted to deal with it calmly. However, he had to deal with this matter on the spot. The two people in the room, who were having sex, did not even have time to put on their clothes when they saw Feng Wuxia standing in front of their bed with an angry look on his face. Oh my God! Master! Su Qiaoyin was so scared that she curled up into a ball and covered herself with a quilt. Master, I was wronged. It was this man who seduced me. Who? Old master. It was this little girl who called me to do this. Li San hurriedly put on his clothes and pointed at Kai Dai as he gnashed his teeth and said, Old master, it wasn't made by a servant. I doesn't know anything. Kai Dai was stunned. She was so scared that her legs became weak and she fell to her knees. Wasn't second madam causing a ruckus by hanging herself? How did it turn into the second madam having an affair with someone else? Shouldn't this Li San go to the begonia garden? How did he appear in the Qiaoyin Pavilion? It really was this girl's master who ordered me to go up on her. Li San didn't think that the matter would be exposed. Of course, he didn't dare to take the bounty, but he still wanted his life. Thus, he quickly knelt down and explained himself. What? Wasn't the master behind Kai Dai Qiong'e? This. It was all a mess. Seeing so many people looking at him being chapteriated, Feng Wuxi's face became extremely ugly. Exhausted, he picked up the stick in the hands of a servant and ferociously hit Li San's back 10 times, trying to kill him. After the time of drinking half cup of tea, Li San breathed his last. In the Nanshao Kingdom, lovers who had chapteriated could be beaten to death, so Feng Wuxi was not guilty. Uncle, for my father's sake, please forgive my aunt. When Su Mayan saw Su Qiaoyin crying, he mustered up the courage to beg for mercy. Although it was Su Qiaoyin's fault, she was, after all, his father's blood-related younger sister. Therefore, Su Mayan could only lower her noble head. Somebody bring me ink and paper. I'm going to divorce this bit chapter. Kai Dai, you little girl's mouth was full of nonsense. Somebody drag her out and kill. Feng Wuxi remembered that this Su Qiaoyin came from the mighty heavenly castle. Seeing the status of mighty heavenly castle, he naturally couldn't really beat her to death. Thus, he could only divorce her. Kai Dai, this kind of person that harbored evil intentions, the prime minister naturally couldn't let her stay. Then she could only take the blame. On the way back, Xianyuan Lingxi and Beitang Zixuan secretly sighed in their hearts. The Feng family was currently in trouble, so it was best for them not to come to the prime minister's mansion for an appointment next time. Situ Yele, Li Minkan and the others were all smart people, so they all left the prime minister's mansion due to something. 4 days later, Xianyuan Haohan's wedding gift and Xianyuan Haofei's wedding gift were sent to the prime minister's mansion. Regret. A chapterly breeze blew across the crystal-clear lake. The jade-green leaves swayed, and a few of the early blooms of the iris appeared and disappeared, as if they were hide-and-seek with the green lotus leaves. The faint fragrance was pleasing to the heart. When the wind blew, the fragrance of the lotus lingered in the air, and the petals of the iris fluttered and danced. Ziyin, is this news true? Feng Jiao was lazily lying in Yi Weiyang's arms while enjoying the fragrance, eating the peeled crystal grapes. She then heard Ziyun say that Xianyuan Haohan had just come to the Prime Minister's mansion with a betrothal gift. She was truly curious. Eldest Miss, it's absolutely true. According to the servants, there are 2 large boxes of pearls from South Sea. Seeing that Yi Weiyang didn't have any intentions of dodging, Ziyin could only raise her eyebrows and say it clearly. Ziyin, why would Xianyuan Haohan want to marry me? He must have taken a fancy to the power of the Prime Minister's mansion. If he wanted her to give up her freedom, let Xianyuan Haohan dream. Eldest Miss, but it is impossible for the old master to return the betrothal gift. Judging from the eldest Miss's words, she wasn't willing not to be married. Originally, Ziyin was very happy that after the eldest Miss had been withdrawn the marriage, someone finally came to propose a marriage. However, looking at the meaning of her eldest daughter's words, she clearly didn't want to marry. Ziyin, you can leave first. You don't have to wait on me here. Let me think about how to deal with father later. Feng Jiao gently held a cup of tea in her hand. Her eyes landed on the lotus leaves that were swaying in the pond as she casually said. After Ziyin left, Yi Weiyang Jun's face darkened. I will not let you marry to Xianyuan Haohan. She already had a real thing with him. How could he let a girl he liked marry another man? So, of course, he would do his best to prevent her from marrying to another man. I know. Feng Jiao's faint smile didn't chapterange in the slightest. A light flashed across her eyes, and the smile on her lips turned into a teasing smile. Weiyang, are you jealous? You clearly know how Mu chapter I want to marry you, but you don't want me to propose to your father. Yi Weiyang continued to hold her delicate body, unwilling to let go. Only, his eyes became a little gentler, and a cute blush appeared on his perfect handsome face. Well, what else? Feng Jiao put down her teacup, smilingly looking up at him. Xianyuan Haohan is ambitious. I am more suitable for you. It wasn't that Yi Weiyang wanted to slander Xianyuan Haohan, but he believed that he truly liked Feng Jiao, and his words were filled with confidence. Hee hee. Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes sparkled as she giggled. Not only for your sake, but also for my own. I will think of a way to return the betrothal gift. She had traveled through time to here. Never thought that she would be married so easily. What about her great dream? Therefore, she would rather be a golden single lady. Yao, it seems like someone is here. I'll hide for a bit. Yi Weiyang's hearing was extremely good. After saying this, he immediately dodged aside. Feng Jiao nodded lightly. She gazed at Feng Wuxi's thin figure walking towards her begonia garden, the smile on her red lips unabated. She thought to herself, this father is not bad. He knows that he should take the initiative to discuss that matter with me. Dad, why are you here? Feng Jiao slowly stood up, smiled and said to him. The King of Qin suddenly sent the betrothal gift together with King of Qi. This makes me feel really uneasy. These 2 brothers have been on bad terms with Ye chapter other. It was one thing for the King of Qi to be responsible for Qiong'er, but he insisted on marrying you and made her his concubine. What should we do? Feng Wuxi impatiently paced back and forth, not in the mood to look at the graceful lotus. Father, didn't King of Qi already send me the marriage annulment letter? Why did he suddenly go back on his words? When Feng Jiao heard this, she was shocked. She thought that it's only the King of Qin, but King of Qi? Could it be that he regretted annulling the engagement? After so Mu chapter trouble, those 2 people were here to give her the betrothal gift. Would Feng Jiqiong be angry if she found out? Thinking up to here, Feng Jiao's lips curved up in a playful smile. It is said that the betrothal gift given by King of Qi is given by his mother, Imperial concubine Duan. Yao, what should we do? We could not afford to offend either sides. I'm so worried. Feng Wukai looked worried, as if he had suffered a great enmity. Dad, I have a way, come over here. Feng Jiao told Feng Wucai what she had thought of. Yao, is this a safe way to deal with this? God, didn't that mean him refusing the two princes' requests? Father, do you have a way to split me in half? Feng Jiao still had a faint smile on her face as her eyes landed on the clear lake water. Feng Wucai was stunned for a while before he shook his head helplessly. That's it. Father, quickly find someone to do this, and I will do the same. Feng Jiao's face was full of victory, her smile blossoming like a flower. Okay, you're the daughter I doted with my heart. I won't allow you to marry into the royal family. Okay, I'll do as you say. Feng Wucai's face was full of worry as he lovingly looked at Feng Jiao. The king of Qin's mansion wasn't a simple, elegant and beautiful building. Instead, it was like a luxurious palace. Seriously, the Phoenix pavilions and dragon temples were serene and majestic. A jade-white lake pavilion was built atop the rippling waves of the blue lake. On both sides of the pavilion were white jade steps. On the stone steps were carved auspicious clouds and qilins. In the pavilion at the heart of the lake, the pink muslin fluttered gently. Occasionally, melodious zither music floated by. Outside the pavilion, there was a beautiful maid playing the zither, elegant and graceful. In the pavilion, a clear and melodious male voice rang out. Fourth brother, your chapterist skills are becoming more and more good. I've lost to you again. The young man who spoke wore a set of white clothes, with a few delicate green bamboos embroidered on the sleeves. His black hair was tied with a white jade hairpin. Although he was laughing calmly, he didn't care about winning or losing at all. 18th brother, you didn't come here today to play chapterist with your fourth brother, right? Across from the man in white, a young man lying on a bed made from fine pear wood lazily cast a glance at him. His eyes were bright like stars, and his sword-like eyebrows were like paintings. A graceful and leisurely smile hung on his handsome face. Fourth brother, the white-clothed man was Xianyuan Haoyun. Now that Xianyuan Haoyun saw through his thoughts, he wanted to say something, but hesitated. Forget it, you may leave first. Xianyuan Haoyun waved his hand at the beautiful servant who was playing the zither, and that well-trained maid excused herself. Brother 18th, it's just the two of us here. If you have something to say, just say it. Xianyuan Haoyun's long and flawless hand could be said to be perfect, leisurely sipping a delicate cup of tea. Provoking after letting out a sigh, Xianyuan Haoyun's sight fell on the place where the jade-like ornament was hanging on Xianyuan Haoyun's waist. Fourth brother, where's your jade qilin? Jade qilin? I gave it away. Xianyuan Haoyun thought of that unique girl, and a smile appeared on his pretty thin lips, carrying a bit of tenderness. Seeing this, Xianyuan Haoyun's lips twitch-chaptered violently. When did the indifferent fourth brother have su-chapter an expression? Fourth brother, you're crazy. What an important thing. Why did you give it away so easily? Even though he knew that fourth brother had given the jade qilin to a woman, he couldn't give it to the woman who had her marriage annulled by King of Qi. This was the first time Xianyuan Haoyun spoke in a sullen tone. He stood up in a huff, gazing at the white lotus blooming on the lake. He shook his head once again, expressing his anger and helplessness towards Xianyuan Haoyun for giving out the jade qilin. Because it's important, I want to give it to her. Xianyuan Haoyun thought back to Feng Jiao's smiling face. His dark eyes narrowed, and his thick eyelashes were like wings, lightly hiding a trace of emotion that he shouldn't have in his eyes. Fourth brother, you're attracted. Xianyuan Haoyun's words weren't a question, but a confirmation. That was why he went to the Prime Minister's mansion, to present the betrothal gift. 18th brother. She saved me when I was following the man in black into the Prime Minister's mansion, and got my arm hurt when fighting with 7th brother. Now that her marriage has been annulled by 7th brother, and I promised her a favor before, so I went to the Prime Minister's mansion to give her a betrothal gift. Xianyuan Haoyun thought about his fight with Feng Jiao, and a hint of appreciation flashed across his eyes. Su-chapter, a unique woman, was rare in the world. But 4th brother, 7th brothers and your betrothal gifts have arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion at the same time. Sigh. The two of you have scared the young lady out of her wits, right? Several imperial doctors said that the eldest miss of Prime Minister is suffering from an illness. Perhaps the days are numbered. Xianyuan Haoyun's elegant fingers slowly rotated the exquisite white jade teacup in his hand. The transparent liquid in the teacup was reflected in a pair of dark eyes that were like the ocean. Sick. Time is running out. Xianyuan Haoyun gently smiled. His voice was like a clear spring that pierced through dense fog. He suddenly stood up, bent down, and picked up a lacquered wooden fish basin that was placed near the chapteress board on the stone table. That girl must still be in love with seventh brother. Well, it was hard, but he couldn't find a single mistake in her move. Since she was suffering from a vicious disease, how could he force her to marry to him? However, this was good as well. At the very least, the seventh brother wouldn't receive any benefits. Fourth brother, do you think we should go to Prime Minister's mansion together to visit the young lady who is suffering from a severe illness? Xianyuan Haoyun found that he was in silence, so he thoughtfully suggested. No, she's doing it on purpose. How can I go and expose her? Let her do it. One day she will be a meek kitten in my arms. Putting down the fish basin, Xianyuan Haoyun turned around and sat down once again. Holding a cup of tea, he slowly rubbed the rim of the cup, speaking in a faint voice while his eyes flashed with unintentional doting. Fourth brother, it seems like Nineth Brothers people secretly contacted the people from the Xiliang Kingdom. Did the person you were tracking escape to the Prime Minister's mansion and then disappear? Xianyuan Haoyun had always been close with Xianyuan Haoyun, so he would pay attention to matters related to Xianyuan Haoyun. Yes, this matter is still under investigation. That's right, you should pay more attention to second brother. It seems that he has gone to pay his respects to father a lot more recently. It's better if we don't move. Xianyuan Haoyun's sword-like brows furrowed. Since when did that second brother become so smart? I'm afraid someone gave him some secret instructions. Xianyuan Haoyun saw his fourth brother Xianyuan Haoyun mention the crown prince, Xianyuan Haochapteran. His face was displeased, his eyes filled with disdain. 18th brother, please don't say Su-chapter things. Who doesn't know that our father doted on our second brother the most? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been established as the next ruler of our Nanshao kingdom at the age of 3. Xianyuan Haoyun hurriedly looked around, his expression stern. Fourth brother, didn't father make him the crown prince because he loved his mother deeply? Xianyuan Haoyun nodded. After a short moment, he put down the stubborn cup in his hand and elegantly stood up with his hands behind his back, looking as relaxed as a bamboo. His white clothes fluttered, showing an indescribable elegance. After a long time, Xianyuan Haoyun saw that Xianyuan Haoyun did not reply, so he turned around only to see that he was the only one in the pavilion. He sighed and lowered his eyes to see the black and white chapteress board with the word wait spelled out on it. Fourth brother, I understand. He thought to himself, fourth brother, you do have foresight. A look of admiration flashed across Xianyuan Haoyun's handsome face. His fourth brother was the best candidate to inherit the throne of Nanshao Kingdom. Begonia Garden of Prime Minister's Mansion. Eldest miss, it's time to take some medicine. Ziyan carried a bowl of black medicine and walked over to Feng Jiao's bed with small and quick steps. Ah, you know I'm just pretending. Why are you still asking me to drink this medicine? Feng Jiao lazily pushed the bowl away. Young Master Yi, look at her. Ziyan rubbed her forehead, looking at Yi Weiyang with a sorrowful look. Yao, didn't you say that you have to disguise yourself a little more? Yi Weiyang received Ziyan's distress signal and immediately persuaded with a taut face. In his heart, he was still angry at her for using the act of pretending to be sick to curse herself. Moreover, she didn't discuss it with him, just did it. But, however, this is already the 10th bowl of bird's nest that I drank. Damn it. Are you guys going to make up for me? Feng Jiao stared at that bowl, with a face full of bitterness and hatred. Please, she wanted to be free. But other than feigning illness, what else could she do? She didn't want to refute the royal family's honor. But she didn't want to implicate the people of the Prime Minister's mansion. Sigh. Yao, I was wrong. Yi Weiyang helplessly took the medicinal bowl from Ziyan's hands. After drinking a few mouthfuls of medicine, the bottom of the bowl was turned upside down. That's more like it. Give me the antidote in a few days. This medicine has made me so weak that I can't even get out of bed. Sigh. What was unlucky was that she couldn't sleep with the beautiful man these days. She hated it. Second miss. Eldest miss is ill and cannot meet the visitors. The 4 maidservants outside stopped someone. The reason why I wanted to go in and chapter up on her is because I care about my sister's illness. How could you lowly maidservants stop me? Humph. Feng Zhiqiang barged in arrogantly with her new maidservant Kai Hong. Hearing this, Feng Zhiao frowned, raising her hand to signal Yi Weiyang to stay away first. Ah, this is Su chapter a timely illness. Feng Zhiqiang's sarcastic words flew into Feng Zhiao's ears. Do you think you're sick and it's over? You must have done something to my mother that night. You are truly vicious, causing her to be disgraced. That I was drugged with love potion must have something connected with you. After the mockery, her red eyes stared at Feng Zhiao, as if she was looking at an enemy. I'm vicious? It can't compare to how someone's heart is like snake or scorpion. Feng Zhiao originally wanted to close her eyes and rest, but Feng Zhiqiang was barking like a mad dog, making her very angry. That was why she mocked and ridiculed her. Falsely injure you. Feng Zhiqiang pointed her slender jade finger at Feng Zhiao, scolding her with a red face and neck. When she saw that Feng Zhiao was alone, and Ziyan immediately turned around to leave after seeing her, didn't even offer her a cup of tea. She was so angry that almost ground her teeth to pieces. If Feng Zhiao is dead, then wouldn't brother Hao be hers? If Feng Zhiao died, she wouldn't need to be a lowly concubine. In any case, she was suffering from a vicious disease, and didn't have Mu chapter time left. Even if she died now, father wouldn't be able to find Feng Zhiqiang's fault. Kai Hong, you can leave first. I have something to say to big sister Zhiao alone. After thinking this way, Feng Zhiqiang lowered her eyes, hiding the resentment in her eyes. Go, I have nothing to talk to you about. Feng Zhiao said coldly when she saw that Feng Zhiqiang had dismissed the servant girl. Indeed, there is nothing to talk about. You are already suffering from illness, and I'm afraid that you will not be far from death. I don't mind personally sending you off. Feng Zhiqiang pulled out the golden hairpin from her hair, and a vicious look flashed across her white face. With just you, kill her? Isn't it a bit comical? Feng Zhiao laughed out loud when she heard this. God must have seen how tired she was to pretend to be sick, so he sent this stupid woman, Feng Zhiqiang, to tease her. What are you laughing at? Feng Zhiqiang thought that Feng Zhiao would be trembling with fear. I laugh at your stupidity. I don't think that Xinyuan Haofei will really like you. I feel that you are very pitiful. Who didn't know that the backyard of the king of Qi King's mansion was full of beautiful ladies? Feng Zhiao, you say that again? Feng Zhiqiang was extremely angry. Golden Hairpin's sharpest head was already stabbing at Feng Zhiao's neck at lightning speed. Feng Zhiao secretly told Yi Weiyang not to take action. She would take care of it herself. Outside the door. What are you all doing here? Why don't you go in to serve? As soon as Feng Wankai left the imperial court, he came to the begonia garden to see Feng Zhiao. However, when he saw the girls standing outside the door, he loudly berated them. Damn it, Daddy was here. Feng Zhiqiang angrily wanted to pull back the golden hairpin, but unexpectedly, she was caught by Feng Zhiao's slender fingers. Dad, help. Sister Qiong'er is crazy. She wants to kill me. Who? Feng Zhiao was crying in pain. Her eyes were cold as she quietly chaptered the golden hairpin away. She turned her hand to stab at Feng Zhiqiang's hand, broke the tendons of Feng Zhiqiang's hand. A moment later, the sound of people screaming and wailing chapterode in the room, making Feng Wuxia, who had just entered the room, feel a chaptero run down his spine. Feng Zhiao had long thrown away the golden hairpin, her face full of fear, with tears streaming down. She got off the bed, crawled in front of Feng Wuxia's boots and said, Father, I wasn't able to dodge when Sister Zhiqiang wanted to kill me. Who? But she hurt her hand by mistake. Who? Feng Zhiao sneered in her heart. I have plenty of time to deal with you, little by little. Who? Pain. Father. My hand. It was her. It was her. This slut broke my tendons. Who? I can't play zither anymore. Feng Zhiqiang struggled to shout out in pain. but it gradually became intense pain. Her face was pale, and beads of sweat covered her forehead. Tears flowed out from her eyes, interweaving with sweat. Pa! A loud sound was heard as it mercilessly landed on Feng Jiqiong's face. You murdered your sister, and you still have the face to say someone family law. Feng Wankai had been so depressed that he couldn't vent his anger because of Feng Jiqiong's mother Su Qiaoyin chapter reading on him. Now that she gave him the chapterance, he would not let it go. Father! No, I am also your daughter. Feng Jiqiong screamed hysterically. The tight pain in her heart made her feel like she was about to suffocate. Yao, the ground is cold. Stand up quickly. Although Feng Wuxia knew that Feng Jiao was feigning illness, but he had always doted on this daughter of his first wife, so he naturally believed her words. Dad, I was wrong. I mistakenly injured Sister Qiong. Who? Dad, you should punish me with the family law too. In order to be more realistic, Feng Jiao kneeled down again. Yao, you're unintentional. Oh, get up, Ziyin. Come and help your young lady. While Feng Wankai was speaking, he had already raised his hand and ordered the servants to punish Feng Jiqiong. After being beaten by 30 times, Feng Jiqiong's weak body was finally awakened by the splash of cold water. Father, spare little sister Jiqiong. Feng Jiao seemed to be sympathetic as she deliberately tried to persuade him. She already wants to kill you, yet you're still speaking up for her. Perhaps Feng Wuxia was really angry, but after getting up he quickly left. Second miss. Let's go back and apply the medicine. With reddened eyes, Kai Hong helped the scarred Feng Jiqiong up. Bit chapter, you and I are irreconcilable. These were the first words Feng Jiqiong said when she opened her eyes. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Feng Jiao covered her mouth and smiled. I'm so scared. These words angered Feng Jiqiong so much chapter that she vomited blood. In the end, she had Kai Hong carry her back to Plum Court. July 24th. 2 days after Feng Jiqiong had been picked the tendons out of her hand, Su Mayan received the news and came to Prime Minister's mansion. Begonia Garden. Lotus Pond winding path. Small bridge running water. Curved bridge veranda winding. Crabapple blossoms and iris flowers reflected in the lake. In the center of the lake, the Huan Pavilion was exquisite and beautiful. Lying on the beautiful bed in the pavilion, one could see the clear water and the impressive blue sky and white clouds. On the shores of the lake were pavilions situated within the forest and flowers, and the scenery was picturesque. At this moment, Feng Jiao, who was wearing a white dress, was lying on the beautiful bed. In her hands was an ancient book that was slightly yellow, blocking her peerless appearance. A few strands of hair that had been blown by the breeze also fluttered in the air. Yao, you've been reading for a long time. Yi Weiyang looked at the ancient book in her hands, cold sweat dripping profusely. Don't make noise, I have to take a closer look. Let's try it out tonight. Feng Jiao randomly turned to another page, attentively reading it. Yao, you've been reading it for 2 hours. Yi Weiyang secretly hated himself for agreeing to give her the erotic painting collection. She was only reading the painting collection, didn't care about anything else. As I read it, isn't it all for our future sexual blessings? Feng Jiao chapteruckled and moved the book away with a serious face. Yao, why didn't you let me do anything last time? She wanted to kill you. If it wasn't for you being clever, the one got injured would be you. When Yi Weiyang thought about how Feng Jiqiong wanted to kill Feng Jiao, he began to worry. Weiyang, I just want to slowly play her to death. Feng Jiao's smile was extremely coquettish, like dew in the morning mist. It looked pure and spotless, but Yi Weiyang couldn't help but shiver upon seeing it. Eldest Miss, young Master Su is here. Ziyin walked over from afar with a plate of exquisite pastries in her hands, as she reminded in a small voice. Weiyang, I'll have to trouble you to dodge again. Feng Jiao was annoyed. She raised her pretty eyebrows and thought to herself, is Su Mayan coming to punish her? Chapter 31 Mascari? Feng Jiao chaptered from afar as Su Mayan walked towards the He Yuan Pavilion. Her rosy chapterary lips still maintained her faint smile. Looking up, her eyes fell on him. He was clad in a gorgeous silver silk robe, and the petals of the begonia flower were slowly falling on his body. They were fragrant as they flew over. The silk robe was embroidered with a dazzling gold shard. A few gold threads were outlined on the sleeves and the hem of the robe. A gentle breeze blew, and the tassel beneath the robe fluttered in the breeze. He was elegant and noble, a peerless handsome. Ignoring the taut face, he was really a noble and elegant young master. But reality was cruel. Sister Cheonger's hand tendons? Did you really break it? He looked gentle and noble. His eyes were smiling, but the pupils seemed indifferent. They were as bright and indifferent as a crystalline flower of water, captivating and seemingly untainted by dust. Unfortunately, the smile did not within his eyes. At this moment, he seemed to be asking her a question, but already had a conclusion. Accidental injury. Feng Jiao elegantly and blandly turned her body towards Su Mayan. The expression on her extremely beautiful face was as calm as still water. Are you here to chapterarge me guilty? Do you know how important a pair of unblemished hands can be to someone who loves playing the zither? You've ruined Sister Cheonger's life. Su Mayan's expression chapteranged as he furiously spoke. The smile disappeared, and his lips carried a trace of coldness. Feng Jiao gently nodded, slowly moving forward. The tassel on her waist emitted a slight sound of collision. It was clear and elegant, and her movements emitted a trace of a flirtatious and noble aura. It was Feng Jiqiong who wanted to kill me, and I accidentally injured her hands to protect myself. Shouldn't I fight back, but wait for your dear sister Cheonger to kill me? Feng Jiao's eyes shifted, her red lips slightly raised. With a frown and a smile, she was gorgeous. Her elegant white clothes brought out a refreshing fragrance, while her black hair fluttered in the wind. But you can't just break her hand tendons like that. She's your half-sister. Su Mayan stared at Feng Jiao in front of him. Her expression became serious as he lowered his long eyelashes, unable to conceal the killing intent in his eyes. Should I be grateful to have Su Chapter a sister? I haven't forgotten who's so shameless to took my man away. Feng Jiao saw Su Mayan's expression without revealing anything. Her red lips slowly formed a faintly discernible arc. He wanted to kill her? Did he have the ability? A few days ago, he had scolded her for being shameless. Today, she would settle the score with him. She met the pair of flaming black eyes. With a light smile, her eyebrows were dyed red as they flowed past. At this moment, specks of light were dancing around the flower petals of the begonia flower. They were dancing on the confident, calm, and elegant face. It was as if she was a dream or a fantasy. Her beauty was somewhat unreal. Su Mayan suddenly looked over, and his heart trembled. It was as if someone had suddenly thrown a small stone into the usually quiet lake, sending out circle after circle of ripples. Took my man away. He felt that this half-sentence made him very uncomfortable. Of course, he also didn't like to listen to it. Therefore, his good-looking sword-shaped eyebrows slightly chaptered in a straight line. What? Nothing to say? Feng Jiao was very surprised by his performance. She had already spoken in Su Chapter an overbearing manner. How could he just stare at her in a daze without saying a word? No, he must have been possessed. He thought she was beautiful. Yes, he must have been possessed. She had hurt his sister Cheonger. How could Su Chapter a vicious girl mat chapter him? Su Mayan. Feng Jiao, if you break your own tendons, I won't make things difficult for you for now. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving you face. Su Mayan straightened his expression. His eyes were cold like stars, and there was a deep blue lake in the depths of his eyes. His expression was deep and clear, containing a cold and dense anger within it. Ha ha ha, giving face? This is so funny. Was she a fool? Pfft, if someone's tendons need to be broken, it should be his. What kind of relative was he? Su Mayan, you're dreaming. Feng Jiao scolded with a cold voice. Her pretty face suddenly turned dark. Su Mayan looked deeply at Feng Jiao. As soon as she finished speaking, he could feel the icy coldness that emanated from her body. This cold indifference came from her bones. A white figure ran over from afar and grabbed Su Mayan's sleeve. Cousin, kill her for me. Teased Feng Jiqiong, who had just heard the news, was rushing over. She fiercely stared at Feng Jiao, her venomous eyes as sharp as swords. I want her dead. I must make her die. Feng Jiqiong was wearing a white robe. Her hair was disheveled, and she looked like a ghost. The smile on her face was sinisterly cold. Feng Zhiqiang looked at Feng Jiao's extremely gloomy face. She felt a little scared for some reason. She remembered that her wrist was agilely held by Feng Jiao that day. A trace of panic flashed across her eyes, so she tightly held onto Su Mayan's arm for safety. "Cousin, help me. Su Mayan. If you really do chapter a strand of my hair, then mighty heavenly castle will forever disappear." Feng Jiao sensed Yi Weiyang emotional fluctuations, who was hidden nearby. Her long eyelashes drooped down, covering her eyes that were as cold as water. She sneered in her heart. "They really are cousins. Cousin, don't listen to that slut's nonsense. Cousin, quickly help me get rid of her." At this moment, Feng Zhiqiang was like a berserk female wolf. Her eyes were bright red with blood stains. How noisy! Feng Jiao's interest was dashed when she heard this. She gently flicked her slender fingers and sent out a sharp embroidery needle. Could this stupid woman chapter-arrange her lines? Who could be so chapter-reap as to compete with her? "Ah! Cousin, it hurts." Feng Zhiqiang only felt a hot wetness between her legs as she covered her stoma chapter and cried out in pain. That sticky feeling made her entire body uncomfortable. Soon after, the mottled blood slowly dyed her white dress. Feng Jiao was shocked. No way! Her body is so fragile. Why did her good sister bleed so much chapter when she just secretly shot her with an embroidery needle? Had she miscarried? Chapter 32. Force him to pay the debt. Su Mayan quickly carried Feng Zhiqiang in his arms. With a tap of his feet, he rapidly dashed through the crabapple woods and headed towards the plum court. Before he left, he gave Feng Jiao a fierce glare. "If anything happens to Qiong'er, I won't forgive you." His tone was cold, and within the coldness, there was a strong, unquestionable aura. Feng Jiao gazed at his back, sneering sweetly like a blooming poppy. How could she be afraid of him? After a long while, when Su Mayan disappeared around the corner, while carrying Feng Zhiqiang, Yi Weiyang's thin lips curved into a beautiful smile. He stood straight on the shore of the lake, while his white clothes and black hair floated up at the same time. Under the reflection of the petals of the pink begonia, he looked like the cloud blocking the moon, floating like the breeze blowing back the snow, an indescribable jade tree facing the wind, extremely graceful. "Yao, do you want me to destroy mighty heavenly castle for you?" When Feng Jiao turned her gaze towards him, he asked. His tone was very doting, with 90% indulgence and 80% admiration. His voice was as clear and pleasant as ever. "No need." She gave Yi Weiyang a deep look. "I like to control everything." The light in her eyes circulated like white plum, clear like spring water. "All right." Yi Weiyang nodded. This was the girl he liked. Never a delicate daughter that needed to rely on someone. "Weiyang, why hasn't your master appeared recently?" Feng Jiao smiled and chapter-arranged the topic. "Didn't the old man say that he liked food? Why hasn't he come in a long time? Master is in closed-door cultivation." Yi Weiyang extended his arms, gently embracing her. "Oh." Feng Jiao nodded and said, "I've been staying in the begonia garden for so many days, because I was pretending to be sick. I feel like I'm about to get moldy. Why don't you take me out for a stroll tonight?" During the day, she naturally couldn't go out. She had a serious illness and went out to play. Wasn't that contradictory? All right. Yi Weiyang's eyes were filled with traces of tender affection. Under the illumination of the warm sun, he calmly looked around. In the evening, Feng Jiao and Yi Weiyang were about to chapter-arrange their clothes and leave. A servant came to report that the king of Qi had arrived. "You can't beat me, so you find helpers?" "Weiyang, since the king of Qi wants to see me, wait for me at the begonia garden first. I'll go to Plum Court now." "All right." Yi Weiyang's thin lips slightly pursed, but in the end, he still couldn't be at ease. Therefore, after Feng Jiao left, he quietly followed behind her, and also went to the Plum Court. He saw a group of servants kneeling before the entrance of Plum Court, as well as a white-bearded old imperial doctor, who was trembling as he prostrated himself on the ground. "Father." Feng Jiao walked towards Feng Wuxia with an angry face, asked in a delicate voice, "What's wrong with Sister Qiong'er?" There were traces of concern in her tone. "Feng Jiao, you still have the face to ask? Sister Qiong'er is so angry that she has miscarried." Su Mayan angrily walked out of the room and cursed at Feng Jiao. Miscarriage? Impossible. She remembered that the embroidery needle had only shot at Feng Jiqiong's legs. But it wasn't enough to make her miscarriage. To be pregnant before getting married. Who would have the face to do that? Even if he wanted to scold her, he should think about it. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and sneered. Being pregnant before marriage in modern times might not be that big of a deal. But in ancient times, it was a fatal beat to girls. All right, Yenner, this matter has caused shame to our Prime Minister. Talk no more. No one is allowed to reveal this matter. If someone divulges the secret, the family law will punish them severely. Feng Wuxi's eyes swept across the room with a cold glint in his eyes. His face was ashen as he ordered his servants. Your King of Qi Highness, when will you marry Sister Qiong? At the side, Su Mayan remembered pale-faced Feng Jiqiong earlier. Her handsome face darkened, then said to Xianyuan Haofei, I did not mention marrying her. Xianyuan Haofei's face was green and red mixed with white, looking extremely funny. Back then, his mother had wanted him to marry Feng Jiao, the daughter of Prime Minister's first wife, as his wife. Because Feng Jiqiong was born from a concubine, she could only be his concubine. Now that Feng Jiqiong suddenly had miscarried, Su Mayan's intention was for him to marry her. He really overestimated himself. Then does your highness not wish to take responsibility for my sister Qiong? Feng Jiao asked. Hearing Feng Jiao's words, Su Mayan was slightly startled. Shouldn't it be him to ask? How did she ask? Yao, don't spout nonsense. Feng Wuxi was angry and wanted to stop Feng Jiao from talking. Back then, His Highness the King of Qi delivered me a marriage annulment letter. It can be seen that King of Qi loves Sister Qiong. He was so decisive back then. Why is he unwilling to take responsibility for little Sister Qiong today? Feng Jiao coldly glanced at Xianyuan Haofei and asked. This? Xianyuan Haofei held his tongue in his throat, unable to do anything after hearing her words. King of Qi Highness, I also mean it. Seeing the blinking eyes that Feng Jiao had given him, Feng Wuxi reluctantly said, This matter, I'll have to report this to father and mother before making any plans. Xianyuan Haofei coldly stared at Feng Jiao. Was she still the same Feng Jiao loved him so much after back then? She actually forced him to marry her little sister. Yao, aren't you seriously ill? Have you recovered? Xianyuan Haofei threw an killing eye over, causing Feng Jiao to curse herself for being reckless. However, in order to torture Feng Jiqiong a little more thoroughly, she needed to promote this marriage. Who didn't know that the concubines in King of Qi's mansion were chapteriming? She just happened to borrow a knife to kill someone. To be able to watch chapter a show while torturing the target, what a good deal. It is precisely because of my illness. So I hope to see Sister Qiong marriage as soon as possible. Feng Jiao pitifully blinked her beautiful eyes, then lowered her head and said honestly. Yi Weiyang heard these words, his lips twitch-chaptered, but his eyes were filled with incomparable doting. Your King of Qi Highness, even though Sister Qiong is like this, she is still the pearl of mighty heavenly castle. When Xianyuan Haofei left, Su Mayan reminded him coldly with a smile that wasn't actually a smile. At this moment, Feng Jiao was a little envious of Feng Jiqiong. She had Su Mayan's sincere protection. Serve second Miss well. There are certain things that you should not say. Be smart. Seeing Xianyuan Haofei leave, Feng Wankai turned around and scolded the maidservants of Plum Court. Yes, sir. The maidservants hurriedly knelt down and said yes. Imperial Dr. Lin, thank you for today's matter. Feng Wuxi helped Imperial Dr. Lin, who was still feeling uneasy after Xianyuan Haofei's reprimand, to stand up, and said after calming his expression, Thank you, Prime Minister. I should leave. Glimmers danced in Imperial Dr. Lin's eyes as he trembled, wanting to leave. Wait! Feng Jiao felt that Imperial Dr. Lin's expression was strange, so she quickly raised her voice to stop him from leaving. Feng Jiao secretly laughed in her heart. Damn it, it's lucky that the marriage has been annulled, otherwise Feng Jiqiong's fate would have been mine. Feng Wuxi kept silent for a long time. In the end, his face darkened and he didn't say anything. He waved hand and let Feng Jiao return to the begonia garden to rest. Yawa, you're back? Yi Weiyang was already waiting at the entrance of the begonia garden before Feng Jiao returned. We can go for a walk. Will you let me chapter-arrange my clothes first? Feng Jiao looked at Yi Weiyang, who was standing at the door, smiled and walked over, lightly chaptered him on the chapterist and softly said, Yawa, it's too late. Let's go tomorrow night. Yi Weiyang raised his head to look at the bright moon, shaking his head in refusal. All right, since I'm tired too, then carry me and sleep together. Feng Jiao extended her beautiful white arms with a smile. Her jade-like fingers drew circles in front of Yi Weiyang's chapterist. The corner of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. WA chapter added a few traces of chapter arm and laziness to her purity. All right. As Yi Weiyang spoke, he had already carried her into the inner room, then took off her clothes, blowing out the candle flame. On the great jade lake shore. The sun was bright and beautiful. The golden sunlight diagonally spilled down. The grass grew and the birds flew. The willow catkins brushed the rippling light of the lake's surface. Jade leaf and pink lotus were so beautiful. On top of an exquisite cruise boat, Feng Jiao, who was wearing a purple dress, was leaning against the white jade railings. Glistening, beautiful, graceful, standing lake wind, blowing her skirt. Hair as smooth as seaweed even raised a beautiful arc behind her. A pair of clear and intelligent eyes were like the spirit spring on a mountain. They were pure without a trace of impurities. But the smile was indeed that captivating. It was so crystal clear that one would never get tired of looking at it. Weiyang, why are you in a daze? Don't tell me my joke isn't funny? Feng Jiao raised her little hand and waved it in front of Yi Weiyang's eyes, as she coquettishly said, No. It's funny, but I'm not used to smiling. Yi Weiyang explained, afraid that after Feng Jiao found out his real identity, she would flee far away. Right, hey, no more jokes. Let's go to the tea house by the shore and have some snacks. Coming out so early in the morning, without having eaten enough, Feng Jiao took the initiative to pull Yi Weiyang's hand up, with a sweet smile on her face. Yawa, if we go to the tea house together, it will ruin your reputation. Yi Weiyang looked at the pair of dark and limpid eyes, obsessively looking at her flower-like chapter-arming face, as he spoke with an awkward red face. You are? Then you want to protect me secretly? Feng Jiao gently smiled with her delicate eyebrows raised. The beautiful face of the begonia demonstration was like a beautiful flower in a lake. Under the shining sun, it emitted a beautiful, fresh, and elegant chapter arm. It was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off it. Yes, Yi Weiyang nodded honestly. He didn't want to make things difficult for her. Reputation? Idiot, I don't care. The worse the better. Then no one came to bother her with the marriage proposal. Therefore, she went out in the daytime instead of her usual movement. Thinking up to this, Feng Jiao pursed her lips with a faint smile. The chapter was dazzlingly enchapteranting. Besides, it's a wonderful thing to walk and have tea with a beautiful man. As soon as she finished speaking, she excused Ziyun, who was laughing secretly at her, off the cruise boat. She ordered her to buy some rouge from the Rongfang shop. Then they would meet up in Yuyang restaurant. Afterwards, she and Yi Weiyang slowly got off the cruise boat, walking slowly side by side. The combination of handsome men and beautiful women would always attract the attention of people. In the elegant room next to the window on the second floor of the Ming Chui restaurant, a handsome man dressed in orange clothes was standing there majestically, holding a white jade cup in his hand as he stared at the street. Of course, he also saw the scene of Yi Weiyang and Feng Jiao together. Chapter 34 Unexpected Guests. Weiyang, what's wrong? Feng Jiao's mind was sharp as she asked softly, sensing Yi Weiyang's strange behavior. However, Yi Weiyang only shook his head, and by the time he raised head to look at the private room on the second floor, the orange-clad man was already gone. Weiyang. Feng Jiao gently lowered her eyes. Her jet-black eyelashes gently blinked like the wings of a butterfly, and her red lips slightly raised. I'm fine. Yawa, look. Ziyun is waving at us. Seeing Feng Jiao's smile, Yi Weiyang's cold face gradually turned gentler. She raised her hand and pointed in the direction of Yuyang restaurant. Then let's hurry up and leave. Feng Jiao immediately raised her head to look in the direction he was pointing at after receiving Yi Weiyang's reminder. A smile like a pear blossom bloomed at the corner of her eyes. Eldest miss, I've bought the rouge. Ziyan saw Feng Jiao and Yi Weiyang walking over, and hurriedly said with a laugh. Let's go upstairs to have some tea. I will treat you. Feng Jiao smiled and said boldly. Yi Weiyang only felt a cold look on his back, as if it wanted to pierce through his back. When he turned around, he couldn't see anything. Yuyang Restaurant, adjacent to the beautiful scenery of the Great Jade Lake, was very famous. The three-story building made from logs stood out among the historical sites. Compared to the other shops, it was like a crane among a flock of chapterikins. It was tall and dazzling. What was eye-catching was that the signboard of Yuyang Restaurant was personally written by the Supreme Emperor himself. The golden words were written in flamboyant calligraphy, like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes. Waiter, we want a private room. Ziyan smiled and said under Feng Jiao's gaze. The private room is on the second floor. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow me upstairs. A waiter from the Yuyang Restaurant greeted them with a smile. The environment is all right. Feng Jiao looked around the room with a faint smile. The waiter was very efficient and served tea very quickly. They had barely sat down for the time of drinking half a cup of tea when unexpected guests arrived. Yao, who is he? There were two beautiful men standing outside the door. The man walking in front asked Feng Jiao. It's been a long time since the engagement being cancelled. Why are you calling me so intimate? King of Qi, I've already broken off the engagement with you. Please don't call me by my maiden name. Feng Jiao noticed Yi Weiyang's slightly frowning expression and immediately corrected Xianyuan Haofei. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haofei's expression became somewhat awkward, and a small flame inexplicably ignited in his heart. Did you find someone else? Ziyan looked at the furious Xianyuan Haofei and hurriedly moved behind Feng Jiao. Although she was afraid of King of Qi, she also felt awful about what happened to her eldest miss. These words were really unpleasant to hear. Hearing this, Yi Weiyang's gaze turned cold. He pursed his lips in displeasure, and the spirit serpent sword in his hand trembled. Feng Jiao shook head at Yi Weiyang, indicating for him to be quiet. Seeing Feng Jiao and Yi Weiyang sitting so close, Situ Yele was very jealous that man could drink tea together with Feng Jiao. But he couldn't. Your Highness is really humorous. It's someone ignored me first. Feng Jiao ungracefully rolled her eyes at Xianyuan Haofei. Bullshit King of Qi. What did he want? You. Xianyuan Haofei was rendered speech-chapterless by her words. It was really difficult for him to connect her elegant zither playing with her sharp words. Your King of Qi Highness, I'm sorry. Today, I only invited this young master to taste the tea so. Feng Jiao didn't continue, but only smiled gently. Her meaning was, she only invited Yi Weiyang, so fuck off. Yi Weiyang looked at Situ Yele, and Situ Yele looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze. Yi Weiyang found that he was in orange silk clothes, immediately remembering the man he met in Ming Chui restaurant. As soon as he entered, his eyes were glued to Yao's body. Could it be that he also liked Yao? When he thought here, he felt rather uncomfortable and glared at Situ Yele. Situ Yele did not back down. He coldly looked at Yi Weiyang with eyes as cold as ice. I think that this young master doesn't mind if I and the head of Situ family join you, right? Xianyuan Haofei arrogantly pointed out his and Situ Yele's identities, implying that Yi Weiyang should take the initiative to leave. He doesn't mind, I do. When Feng Jiao saw Xianyuan Haofei, she felt that he was too hypocritical. How could she still have tea with him? She stood up as soon as she finished speaking. Yao, or my treat, is it okay? When Situ Yele saw Xianyuan Haofei was refused, he hurriedly laughed and said, damn it, it wasn't easy for him to get rid of Xianyuan Lingxi. Right now, the woman he fancied was right in front of him, but she was with a man who didn't have a high status. How could he endure this? Young Master Situ, can't I afford it? Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes were crystal clear with a trace of cold light. Her eyes were as sharp as a sword that had been unsheathed. Cold air overflowed everywhere, making people not dare to look directly at her. This, Situ Yele didn't say anything for a long time. If it was anyone else, he would have already started scolding. Now that the girl he liked was standing in front of him, he didn't dare scold her. Weiyang Ziyan. Let's go. It was Su chapter a disappointment. The tea was wasted. Fire burning in Feng Jiao's heart. Wait, Yaoer, you can't go with him. When Situ Yele heard Feng Jiao call out Yi Weiyang's name, his expression changed drastically. Yi Weiyang unsheathed his spirit serpent sword and pointed it at Situ Yele. The color of the sword light suddenly changed to blue. Spirit serpent sword. Xianyuan Haofei's face suddenly turned deathly pale. Yaoer, quickly come over. This man is an assassin. If you're with him, you'll be in danger. Situ Yele called out worriedly. He wanted to pull Feng Jiao away, but Feng Jiao dodged his hand. Whether there's danger or not, that's my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Feng Jiao shrugged her shoulders and said. Then she smiled sweetly and stretched out her lotus-white arm, taking the initiative to hook around Yi Weiyang's neck. Weiyang, don't worry about these flies. Let's go somewhere else to taste the tea. Well, Feng Jiao yawned lazily, perhaps because she was sleepy. All right, sleep. When Yi Weiyang heard this, a faint smile appeared on his lips. He seemed to be doting and seemed to be gentle. He obediently put away the spirit serpent sword, held Feng Jiao, and walked out of the restaurant. Chapter 35 Seductive Fly. This was the first time someone had disobeyed his authority and ignored his existence. Your king of Qi Highness, head of Situ family, your servant shall take my leave. After Ziyan finished speaking, Ziyan ran out as fast as she could. Your Highness the king of Qi? Do you think we should go after her? Situ Yele raised his eyebrows and asked when he saw the dark expression of Xianyuan Haofei. I will not follow them personally this time. Just tell them to follow them. It was all Situ Yele's fault. He said that Feng Jiao had climbed up another high branch chapter, but now, he had rushed over to capture Feng Jiao, only to end up being duped by Feng Jiao. You are. Situ Yele wanted to say something but stopped himself. He didn't wish for the woman he liked to have Mu chapter contact with the cold man. He wanted nothing more than to grow wings on his back and fly over. Yele, she's not a woman that you can think of. Xianyuan Haofei gave Situ Yele a warning glance, and his black eyes became deeper and deeper. His sword-like eyebrows slightly raised as he laughed and ordered elegantly towards the door. Chapter E. Go take a look at the young lady of the Feng family. Tell me exactly where is she tasting the tea and report to me. Yes, my lord. A gloomy voice sounded through the door, followed by a light, feathery sound of air leaving the room like a bolt of lightning. Your king of Qi Highness, shall we just sit here then? Seeing that he was unable to convince Xianyuan Haofei, Situ Yele had the urge to say his goodbyes. Aha! After a soft snort, Xianyuan Haofei leisurely lifted the corner of his robe and gracefully sat on the stool Feng Jiao had just sat on. Situ Yele was so anxious that he felt like an ant on a hot pan. He had just managed to shake off Xianyuan Lingxi's entanglement at the Ming Chui restaurant, but now, he was being held up by Xianyuan Haofei. Situ Yele had tolerated it for the sake of the Situ family. Thus, he stood by the window with his hands behind his back, gazing at the scenery on the street. Young master, the madam has invited the princess to go to Jade Lotus store to buy some jewelry. She told me to tell you to follow along. A servant of Situ Yele stood outside the door. My future brother-in-law, what are you looking at me? Go quickly, don't let your mother and Lingxi wait too long. Xianyuan Haofei's eyebrows twitched. His expression was full of ridicule. Farewell. Situ Yele politely clasped his hands and bowed before turning around to leave. Sure Wu, follow head of Situ family. I wonder which chapter direction he's headed in? Xianyuan Haofei recalled the scene of Feng Jiao throwing herself at Situ Yele at the Songhe restaurant. He immediately felt uncomfortable, and he coldly harumphed as he spoke in defense. After the time of burning half an incense stick, Sure Wu returned. He said that head of Situ family did not go to the Jade Lotus store. Then he said he'd lost him. Useless. Xianyuan Haofei flew into a rage and almost smashed the table with his palm. Fortunately, Chapter E returned. The news he brought made Xianyuan Haofei forget about the punishment, because when Xianyuan Haofei heard the news, he immediately jumped out of the window. Wake up, Yi Weiyang asked when he saw Feng Jiao's slightly fluttering eyelashes. When did you arrive on the cruise boat? Where's Ziyan? Feng Jiao was surprised. Didn't she say to chapter-arrange the tea house for tea? Right now, they were on the Great Jade Lake, with dense lush green lotus leaves rising up and down. At first glance, it was as beautiful as a painting, as if the two of them were standing in the waves of rippling green waves, only feeling a faint fragrance from the lotus leaves. I asked Ziyan to hire a carriage. She sent your clothes, jewelry and snacks back to the Prime Minister's mansion first. Yi Weiyang played with the tassel on his spirit serpent sword, and told her, where was Ziyan? Oh, Feng Jiao faintly nodded. But I'm so hungry. It was past noon. Here. Yi Weiyang turned around and took out a plate of pastries and a soy sauce duck from cabin. Weiyang, this is too sweet, and this is too greasy. Feng Jiao pouted coquettishly. Then I'll go to the Xian Baiwei restaurant and buy your favorite roasted pigeon? Yi Weiyang hesitated for a moment before asking. N. Feng Jiao looked into his eyes and saw the gentleness in his eyes. Her heart trembled, but her face didn't show any emotion. She only slightly nodded. After Yi Weiyang had flown away with her lightness skills, Feng Jiao sat on the deck in boredom, slowly swinging her white and delicate feet, taking off her stockings. She patted the clear lake water, creating beautiful sparkling splashes. However, there was someone who made her restless. In the distance, an orange-colored figure jumped off a beautiful cruise and dashed towards her. Yao, I finally found you. Situ Yele's gaze fell on her face, burning with emotion. Young Master Situ? Feng Jiao looked up at him stunned. Wasn't he with King of Qi? Why did he suddenly appear in front of me? Yao, he really doesn't know how to take care of you. Why did he leave you alone on the cruise boat? Situ Yele's face was full of sympathy. As he spoke, he bent down. When he saw those small and exquisite feet, his eyes flashed with astonishment. What are you doing here? Feng Jiao clearly didn't welcome him. Your feet are beautiful. It was as white as jade, as smooth as grease. The toes of Ye Chapter's slender foot were as beautiful as a painting, sparkling and translucent. They were as agile as a clear spring, as clear as a lotus. Thank you for your praise. Feng Jiao responded straightforwardly, then giggled like a beautiful silver bell. Yi Weiyang wouldn't be back for a while, so sneaking around was good. Yao, or why don't you stay with me? Situ Yele smiled at her. Recalling the kiss he had given her in the outskirts of the city, he couldn't help but feel agitated. Thus, he began to speak with impatience. Don't. I can't afford to offend that tiger. Feng Jiao elegantly put on her stockings, then rolled her eyes at him. She hadn't forgotten Xianyuan Lingxi had kicked her that time at the Songhe restaurant. Indeed, Xianyuan Lingxi was a tiger. Situ Yele could not help but nod, sighing in his heart. This royal princess had made it impossible for him to have a maid in the room and go to the brothel. Now he was living a life of misery like a monk. Yao, but I like you. Situ Yele didn't know what was wrong with him, and actually said these words. Like means nothing. Feng Jiao gently pressed her hand against his chapterist and gently pun-chaptered it, then said with a playful smile, Then what do you want? Situ Yele's body trembled when she lightly pun-chaptered him. Her slender fingers seemed to possess some magic, making him want to do something to her. Chapter 36 Angry Men. What did I want? Flirtatious yet mysterious smile appeared on the corner of Feng Jiao's eyes, making her look both innocent and sexy. Her chapter-arming and evil voice called out, Young Master Situ, how about we give it a try? The soft voice was as sweet as the raindrops. It made people's hearts go soft when they heard it. Yao, we're already so close. Why don't you call me by my name? He pushed her onto the deck, and his thin and beautiful lips landed next to Feng Jiao's ear. His deep black eyes flashed with a terrifying light as he looked down at her beautiful face, his slender and pure white fingers gently caressing the white breasts. The fragrance of her body, accompanied by the faint fragrance of the lotus, faintly assaulted him. Then, Situ Yele and Feng Jiao stuck closely to Ye Chapter other through the cloth. His strong and powerful arms gave her a sense of security. Waves of heat came forth, making people blush profusely. In his arms, Feng Jiao's body was as light as a swallow, and her whole body was delicate and graceful. The two chapter of this man made her face turn red, and a wave of heat hit her face and covered her ears. Fuck, she's already experienced hundreds of times in the modern world. How could she still blush? Feng Jiao secretly looked down on herself from the bottom of her heart. It's not like she had never seen a man before. But out of the corner of her eye she saw that the man holding her seemed no better than she was. His handsome face, WA chapter was as fair as jade, was also flushed red, as if he had been dyed by the red mist. This was quite amusing. She wrapped her hands around his neck, leaned forward, and whispered in his ear. Yele. Yaoer, what are you doing? Feng Jiao didn't need to turn her head to know that Yi Weiyang had returned after buying the roasted pigeon. Her ice-cold voice sounded as if it had been soaked in ice-cold water. Nothing, just chapter-adding. Feng Jiao faintly smiled as if nothing had happened. She looked calm and collected, as if she had just been chapter-adding with Situ Yele. Feng Jiao. A bitter, angry look was on his young and handsome face. Yaoer is my woman. Situ Yele looked at Yi Weiyang with determination, an intense desire for possession. Yaoer is my wife. We have already decided to get married. Yi Weiyang placed the roasted pigeon in Feng Jiao's hands. He tightly hugged her slender waist, his thin lips slightly curled as he swung out a heavy bomb. Yaoer, was he telling the truth? Situ Yele's body was covered in wounds from the explosion of the heavy bomb, and he was pushed back step by step. His tall and handsome body trembled. How is this possible? What truth? Feng Jiao rolled her eyes at Situ Yele, before coldly glancing at Yi Weiyang. Yi Weiyang, stop talking nonsense. What marriage? How unpleasant. She still wanted to eat pretty boys. If she and he were engaged for life, then wouldn't Miss Feng be in a huge decline in the market? Yi Weiyang heard a cold snort as she stared at him, clearly displeased. Yaoer, last night weren't we? We did that. Speaking of this matter, Yi Weiyang began to speak with a raspy voice. His handsome face seemed to be covered in a layer of rouge, and his face was in chapter-arming red. Specifically, what's that? Feng Jiao covered her mouth with a smile, and asked in a teasing tone. Yi Weiyang was already extremely embarrassed, but now that Feng Jiao asked him this question, his dark and deep eyes immediately glowed with a strong lust, making him seem extremely attractive. Yaoer, you're my woman anyway. Yi Weiyang's rosy lips pursed up into a smile. After all, he said that WHI chapter made Feng Jiao laugh. Yaoer likes me. Stand aside. Situ Yele remembered Feng Jiao's flirtatious look when she had just shown him. He immediately became full of confidence as he roared at Yi Weiyang. At this time, Situ Yele had already forgotten that he was afraid of Yi Weiyang's spirit serpent sword. The moment he said those words, he was filled with regret. Yi Weiyang held Feng Jiao nimbly with his left hand and spun around, nimbly pulling out the spirit serpent sword with his right hand, and gracefully swinging it a few times. It looked extremely beautiful. His bright sword pointed straight at Situ Yele's man part. No. Feng Jiao thought that it was bad for the pretty boy to be injured. What if he couldn't do it anymore? She hurriedly spoke to stop. Situ Yele seemed to have been prepared for this. His waist was wrapped with cat chapter soul whip that were forged from profound iron, and he was about to send out a spiral attack towards Yi Weiyang's body. However, Feng Jiao's shout also made him involuntarily withdraw his hand. Yele, why didn't you go to Jade Lotus store? An exquisite and gorgeous cruise boat came over from the distance. On top of the cruise boat stood a handsome figure. He was Xianyuan Haofei. He came over after receiving the news from Chapter Yi. At this moment, he saw that Situ Yele's hand was still two-chaptering Feng Jiao's hand. His face became displeased. Yele, so you have an appointment with pretty lady? A man and a woman walked out from the cabin behind Xianyuan Haofei. The man was someone that Situ Yele recognized. He was Beitang Ziqian. Naturally, the woman was Beitang Zixuan. Situ Yele glanced at Beitang Ziqian with a depressed expression. He really wanted to have an appointment with pretty lady, but reality wouldn't allow it. Wasn't there still a cold-looking man standing there? He did not care about Xianyuan Haofei's vile words. If possible, once his strength were full, he would not need to marry the imperial family. Nor would he need to marry that coquettish tiger, Xianyuan Lingxi. Sister Feng, what are you doing? A woman and two men were talking nonsense. Seeing this, a hint of disdain flashed across the depths of Beitang Zixuan's eyes. She then covered her mouth and laughed. Her laughter was melodious, and was more or less deliberately teasing Feng Jiao. Sister Feng? Really intimate. She did not remember that she had a younger sister called Beitang Zixuan. Ah, you're older than me by half a year. I can call you sister. Following that, Feng Jiao also laughed, and her laughter was so loud that it almost caused Beitang Zixuan's blood to splash out. Yaoa, let's go. Yi Weiyang hated these young masters and mistresses of the imperial family. So he stood next to Feng Jiao and said in a low voice. All right. Feng Jiao didn't want to see the Beitang siblings either, so she nodded in agreement. Her smile was as bright as the moon, beautiful and chapter-arming. Sister Feng, why are you leaving when we've only just arrived? It doesn't seem to be proper. When Beitang Zixuan saw handsome Yi Weiyang, she immediately felt exciting. This heroic man was even prettier than big brother Xingyuan, and his manly demeanor made her heart beating. Then, Beitang Zixuan smiled sweetly at Yi Weiyang and asked, Young master, what do you think? That pair of enchapterenting eyes looked at Yi Weiyang. Chapter 37 Apologize. When Yi Weiyang heard Beitang Zixuan's words, her eyebrows twitch-chaptered, and she coldly snorted. She turned her face away and ignored Beitang Zixuan. Feng Jiao could tell from Yi Weiyang's expression that he definitely hated Beitang Zixuan. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. This brat didn't know that Beitang Zixuan had taken a fancy to him. Did he? Yaoa, stay. Situ Yele did not wish for Feng Jiao to leave so quickly either. Yaoa, aren't you calling me too intimate? Xianyuan Haofei's face turned ashen, but he could not show it on his face. The palm that was hidden in his sleeve clenched into a fist and anger rose from his chapterist. He was already depressed to have met the Beitang brother and sister halfway through the journey. Now that he heard Su Chapter's intimate address, he really had the urge to kick Situ Yele off the cruise boat. But he had to endure it. Situ Yele ignored Xianyuan Haofei's glare. He continued to ask Feng Jiao, hoping that she wouldn't leave so quickly. Yele, when did you get so close to Miss Feng? A mocking smile appeared on Beitang Ziqian's lips. In the future, he would seem to be interested in the girl, who had been divorced by the king of Qi. This was not a good sign. Did not. Situ Yele thought about how he couldn't be at odds with king of Qi, Xianyuan Haofei. So he hesitated for a moment before calming himself down and explaining in a panic. Seeing Yi Weiyang and Feng Jiao leave, Beitang Zixuan became anxious. She walked towards Feng Jiao and said with a smile, Sister Feng, the lotus here is so beautiful. Besides, it's not late yet, not to mention you're hungry. Why don't you eat some food before you leave this place? When Beitang Zixuan saw the roasted pigeon paper bag in Feng Jiao's hands, her thoughts stirred as she considered it. You are. It seemed like she was right. However, seeing she was smiling so sweetly, Feng Jiao was unable to make contact with the overbearing Beitang Zixuan from before. Was there any need to call out to her so intimately? Sigh, it was all because of Yi Weiyang. Thinking up to here, Feng Jiao fiercely glared at Yi Weiyang, making Yi Weiyang feel completely confused. Why was Yaoa staring at him? You can continue to enjoy the boat. We'll be leaving first. Feng Jiao decided to leave first. She didn't have a good impression of Xianyuan Haofei and Beitang Ziqian. As for Situ Yele, he was feeling better. Seeing that Feng Jiao was really going to drag the pretty man away, Beitang Zixuan was instantly angry from embarrassment. She took the opportunity when Feng Jiao passed by her, wanting to let Feng Jiao accidentally fall into the lake, to vent the grievances she got during the mat chapter. However, how could Feng Jiao be careless? She moved with lightning speed and grabbed Beitang Zixuan's long sleeves. She intentionally let out an ah sound, as if she had lost her balance, causing the cruise boat to sway a few times. Splash! Water splashed. Wu, save me! Who would have thought that Beitang Zixuan was also a landlubber? The expressions of the people on the cruise boat chapter changed drastically when they saw the two of them fall into the water together. Seeing Beitang Zixuan fall into the lake, Beitang Ziqian hurriedly jumped into the lake to save her, who did not know how to swim. Situ Yele was a landlubber. Seeing Feng Jiao fall into the water made him extremely anxious. He was just about to call someone to help Feng Jiao out of the lake. Yi Weiyang was just thinking about throwing away the spirit serpent sword, then jumping into the lake to save her. However, he didn't expect Xianyuan Haofei to nimbly grab Feng Jiao before him. Feng Jiao couldn't have imagined that it's actually Xianyuan Haofei who picked her up instead of Yi Weiyang. She felt a little depressed in her heart. She was good at swimming. Why was he so eager to save her? That made she couldn't punish Beitang Zixuan in the water. Xianyuan Haofei held the beauty in his arms, lowering his eyes and asking urgently, "Yao, are you all right?" When he saw Feng Jiao fall into the water, he couldn't stop the panic in his heart. Without thinking, he used his fastest speed to save her. He only knew that for the first time in his life, his heart was in a panic, as if someone had grabbed it. "No matter what, I still thank you for saving me." Although there was no need to save her like this, she still had to thank him. Feng Jiao realized that his body W chapter was a little tense, so she quickly retreated out of his embrace. Yi Weiyang glanced at her clothes that had been soaked by the lake water. At this moment, she was dressed very thinly. Her muslin dress pressed against her delicate body. Her curves were extremely distinct. She had a devilish body and a fiery soul, as if, brah. Sparks flashed in Yi Weiyang's eyes, and she quickly glanced at Xianyuan Haofei's group. Seeing them turn around to look at the other cruise boat, Yi Weiyang felt a sour feeling in her heart. Did this mean that they only shifted their gazes after seeing Yao's current seductive appearance? He quickly took off his robe and draped it over her. Don't catch chapter a cold. He could not let other men see the seductive chapter arm of his beloved girl. Zixuan-Beitang Ziqian was extremely anxious when he saw his sister unconscious. Puff! After Beitang Zixuan woke up, she spat out a mouthful of water. "Big brother, it's her. It was Feng Jiao who pushed me into the lake." A pair of beautiful eyes that seemed to have poison inside stared at Feng Jiao and said angrily, "Out of nowhere, if I push you into the lake, I'll be dumb enough to fall into the lake with you." Feng Jiao ungracefully rolled her eyes. After being refuted in Su chapter a manner by her, Beitang Zixuan was speech chapterless. However, she was stifled to death in her heart, causing her to be in Su chapter a sorry state in front of the man she adored. "Feng Jiao, you must be the one who pushed my little sister into the lake. Quickly apologize to her." Thus, when Beitang Ziqian saw his little sister's pitiful appearance, his heart chaptered greatly. He hurriedly hugged his little sister and used his inner strength to dry her clothes. At this moment, his handsome face was deathly pale, and he began to berate Feng Jiao. "Apologize? Ha ha ha. How funny. If someone need to apologize, it should be your little sister to apologize to me." Feng Jiao stretch-chaptered lazily, yawned gracefully, and pulled down the white jade hairpin, using her hands as a comb. Her black hair was like a waterfall. Under the faint warmth of the sun, it emitted a faint enchapteranting luster. As the wind blew gently, it carried with it a few strands of soft hair that mesmerized people, naughtily brushing against her beautiful face that was as fine as porcelain. "So beautiful." Beitang Ziqian suddenly chapter-oked on his words, as if he wanted to curse. The breathtaking beauty and the lithe and graceful figure appeared perfectly on her body. Everyone on the cruise boat was stunned by what they saw. This was especially true for Beitang Zixuan. The jealousy in her heart was like a venomous snake that was devouring her. Feng Jiao raised her hand and ruffled her silk-like hair. Her wide sleeves fell off, revealing her white arm that was as smooth as white jade. Her whole body was leisurely and lazily exuding all sorts of chapter arm and grace. In contrast to the beautiful lakeshore light, she was like a beautiful floating cloud, looking even more mesmerizing and free. Chapter 38. Meet a handsome guy. Weiyang, let's go. Feng Jiao couldn't be bothered to care about them, since no pretty boy for her anymore. She might as well go back and eat Weiyang. All right. Yi Weiyang had been wanting to leave for a long time, so he walked over and picked up Feng Jiao. He too chaptered the lotus leaf with his foot and left. Leaving behind the Beitang siblings, Xianyuan Haofei and Situ Yele looked to Ye chapter other. Very soon, Xianyuan Haofei was the first to recover from his shock. He ruthlessly glared at Beitang Zixuan. Big brother, he has already left. Being stared at by Xianyuan Haofei, Beitang Zixuan felt extremely uneasy. When she saw the stunned expression on Beitang Ziqian's face, she hurriedly raised her elbow to remind him unhappily. On the way back, Beitang Zixuan asked Beitang Ziqian, Big brother, do you like Feng Jiao? No. She's a woman whose engagement was cancelled by King of Qi. How could I like her? Beitang Ziqian hurriedly denied. He must have been possessed by an evil spirit when he thought Feng Jiao was beautiful. You better don't. If cousin Siziter finds out, you'll be in for it. Beitang Zixuan bluntly teased him. When Beitang Ziqian thought of Plum Villa's cousin Fu Shuyan, his expression immediately changed greatly. Don't mention her to me. The voice was cold. Big brother, when mother was still alive, she already arranged this marriage for you. Even if you don't like cousin sister, it won't help. Beitang Zixuan sighed. She recalled how Yi Weiyang had treated Feng Jiao with Su chapter gentleness. She was about to go crazy with jealousy. At this moment, she couldn't help but feel sympathy for Fu Shuyan, who had fallen in love with her big brother. Zixuan, I know my limits. Beitang Ziqian supported his forehead as if in pain. Oh, she knew her big brother very well. He did not like it when others were worrying about his love life. Thus, when she heard his words, she fell silent. However, her hatred of Feng Jiao grew bigger and bigger. A sinister ray of light flashed across the bottom of Beitang Zixuan's eyes. Perhaps if someone got rid of her, she would be able to get the beautiful man. After Situ Yele and Xianyuan Haofei went their separate ways, they went to Jade Lotus store to pick up lady his mother Madame Yen and bring her home. Madame Yen continued to chapter at her all the way. Layer, the princess has a deep affection for you. You must not fail her. It was just these words. Situ Yele remembered the beautiful and pure woman on the cruise boat. A sense of loss flashed in his heart, because she was no longer a virgin. Situ Yele didn't want to argue with Madame Yen, so he nodded his head helplessly. Actually, this wasn't what he was thinking. Right now, he didn't want to fulfill his engagement with Xianyuan Lingxi at all. Xianyuan Haofei recalled that there was no scarlet sandalwood on Feng Jiao's jade white lotus root arm. Doubt slowly turned into jealousy and hatred. But who was the man who had obtained her virginity? He would find a way to find that man and kill him. The night was like water, the willow branch chapter on the moon. Weiyang, why aren't you saying anything? When Feng Jiao saw Yi Weiyang's sullen expression, after two of them returned to Begonia Garden together. Therefore, she had no chapteroise, but to speak first to break the silence between them. Yaoer, is it that I can't satisfy you? Only with him. Yi Weiyang originally wanted to question Feng Jiao, but when she saw Feng Jiao's smiling face, she really couldn't scold her. Yi Weiyang, I don't have anything to do with him. They should be chapteratting. What's more, if anything really happens between me and him, I should at least strip myself naked. Yi Weiyang, if you don't have any proof, don't let your imagination run wild. Feng Jiao had already guessed that Yi Weiyang was silent because of this matter, so she directly fired off a round of fire at Yi Weiyang. She was depressed to death. Yi Weiyang's doubt was dispelled by her scolding. That's right. Yaoer didn't strip naked to do Su chapter intimate things with that man. He seemed to be stingy. Yaoer, I'm sorry. He could only blame himself for caring too much chapter about Yaoer. Yi Weiyang embraced her and embarrassedly apologized. Weiyang, sometime what you see with your own eyes isn't real. If you like me, you should trust me. Seeing him hesitating, Feng Jiao immediately secretly laughed in her heart. Fortunately, Yi Weiyang was still very easy to deal with. Yes, her beauty had always been unstoppable. All right. Yi Weiyang was suddenly kissed by Feng Jiao on his handsome face, and immediately nodded with a happy smile. Yi Weiyang finally became Feng Jiao's bodyguard for a month. On the last day, Yi Weiyang reluctantly left the Begonia Garden. Eldest miss, why don't you hold young Master Yi? Ziyin was curious. She had always thought that young master, Yi would be a good person for the eldest young miss. However, young Master Yi had said that he would leave. Feng Jiao hadn't intended to keep him. Eating one dish all the time, it's so boring. Ah, why I'm saying it to a little girl like you don't understand. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows. Although she said that, she was very happy. She finally tricked Yi Wei on away. Although this method was a little evil, she felt that sacrificing for her great dream wouldn't be a problem. Strange, young Master Yi likes you so much. Chapter. How could he bear to leave? Ziyin still had an expression of disbelief. Ziyin, today is the 15th day of August. Let's go to the Jiuyin Temple in Nanyu Mountain and pray for blessings. Feng Jiao smiled and changed the topic. Good, good. It's said that the Jiuyin Temple's pear blossoms are at full bloom. Ziyin smiled and quickly went to prepare the things for pray. The Nanyu Mountains range was long and winding, filled with green water and green hills, full of snow-white pear blossoms, as beautiful as the clouds and frost. Under the blue sky and white clouds, wisps of smoke rose into the air as a winding path climbed upwards. At the foot of the mountain, there were many fancy carriages and countless pilgrims. It was only because today was the 15th day that there were many people coming up and down the mountain. Eldest miss, if we go up, we'll have to get off the carriage and walk. Ziyin lifted the curtain of the carriage and smiled. All right, then let's stop the carriage at the foot of the mountain. We will walk up by ourselves, and it will be a sign of our sincere desire for blessings. Feng Jiao frowned and suddenly smiled. Is this the Feng family's young miss carriage? Behind the carriage, there was a handsome man in white clothes. His hair was tied in a bun, and sunlight shone through the branch chapters of the pear blossom onto his handsome face, giving him a sense of warmth. Chapter 39. Come across. Feng Jiao got off the carriage and instantly smelled the fragrant scent of pear flowers. She looked into the distance and saw beautiful green between the snow-white pear flowers. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a man in white clothes, and she smiled sweetly. Young Master Li? You're also coming to the Jiuyin Temple to pray? When you lifted the curtain of the carriage earlier, I thought I saw the wrong person. It's really you. Li Minkin nodded his head and smiled gently. The blazing sun shone down with a scorching light from above. Feng Jiao slightly frowned. Ziyin hurriedly opened the oil paper umbrella, smiled and said, Eldest miss, it's cool on the mountain, shouldn't we go up now? And that's fine too. At the foot of the mountain it's so hot. Let's go up the mountain. Therefore Feng Jiao laughed softly. All right. Can I call you Yaoa? Li Minkin her call him young Master Li. Li Minghan felt weird. He raised his eyebrows and smiled as he asked. Of course, you don't have to call me young Master Li. You can call me Minkan. All right. Anyway, the name is just a code. Feng Jiao covered her mouth and giggled. Then let's pray for blessings together. My pleasure. Li Minkin's black eyes shifted as he smiled and nodded. His snow-white silk robe swayed gently in the mountain breeze. His picturesque face seemed to be coated with a layer of dazzling light, making his appearance handsome and magnificent. Beautiful man. What a beautiful man. Feng Jiao looked at him with her heart full of lust. How good would it be if she could eat him? Miss, young Master Li is already walking in front. Why are you still in a daze? Ziyin quickly reminded. Oh, then let's keep up. Feng Jiao smiled. On the way, Li Minkin's witty remarks made both Feng Jiao and Ziyin laugh. The three of them walked on the bluestone path up to the mountain. However, the Jiuyin Temple was built on the mountainside of Nanyu Mountain. The temple was grand and imposing, and the entire temple was hidden in the snow-white pear forest. The corners of the temple revealed apricot yellow color that exuded a mysterious Buddhist feeling. Within the Jiuyin Temple, there were many guests. In a wide square in front of the entrance, many hawkers were selling incense sticks, underworld money, and all sorts of small things, attracting many people to ask for their prices. Inside the temple was a 12-foot-tall Maitreya booth. It could be said that he was a monk with a big belly. The sunlight shards sprinkled on the body of the Buddha, giving it a golden glow. Yaoa, I've made an appointment with the host here to discuss some matters. Can you wait for me at the Qin Pavilion in the back of the mountain? Li Minkin asked her after lighting the candles and burning incense. All right. Feng Jiao nodded with a smile. Seeing Li Mingyang following a little sham to see the host, so she ordered Ziyin to donate 88 silver taels to Jiuyin Temple before they prepared to leave for the back of the mountain. Eldest miss, don't you ask a sign? Ziyin was puzzled. Didn't other girls come to the Jiuyin Temple just to ask for a marriage sign? I don't believe that. Feng Jiao shook her head. Ziyin, let's go to the Qinyin Pavilion in the back of the mountains and wait for young Master Li. Ziyin immediately followed. Surrounded by peaks, there was a limpid blue pond. The lake water was clear and transparent, with rows of pear trees on the shore. The wind blew past and the petals fell into the pond, creating ripples. The Qinyin Pavilion was built from pear trees and sat on the shore. Inside the pavilion was an exquisite, ancient and unadorned 9-stringed zither. Eldest miss, this place is so beautiful. Ziyin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers. With a light sniff, one would feel relaxed and happy. Suddenly, melodious sound of flute filled with a few hints of melancholy sounded, as if it was a depressing knot. Suddenly, it turned, like a stream flowing through a mountain. When Feng Jiao heard this, she couldn't help but gently move towards the zither and press the strings with her delicate fingers. As a result, the beautiful and melodious music immediately rang out, greatly startling Feng Jiao. It seemed like human, as if it knew what she was thinking. The soft and moving music lingered endlessly around the beam, like flowing clouds and flowing water, like the heavenly sound of music, causing people to feel comfortable upon hearing it. Soon, the sound of the zither drowned out the melodious sound of the flute. When she played to the climax, green clothes fluttered in the wind, cool mountain breeze gently blew, causing Feng Jiao's black hair to drift down like a waterfall, dancing like a butterfly. At this moment, she was even more chapter-arming than a flower. Lady's zither skills are good. Clear and melodious voice of a man sounded, like the gurgling of spring water, causing people to want to hear it again. In the distance, a young man appeared under the pear tree. He looked to be around 19 years old, and a fan-shaped white jade hairpin was in his hair. His black hair fluttered in the wind like seaweed, and he looked like a fairy descending into the mortal world. Through the branch chapters of the pear tree, the mottled sunlight shone on his body. His sword-like eyebrows were like pictures, his starry eyes were bright, his lips were the color of chapterary, and his skin was the color of snow. His pink long robe wrapped around his almost perfect body curves. When he looked at her with his bright starry eyes, she only felt her heart palpitating, and her chapter-arming little face flushed red. It would be great if she could eat Su chapter an immortal-like man. But why was this man sitting in a wooden wheel chapter? What a pity. She looked at his hands that were as white jade holding onto the wooden wheel. A trace of pity flashed in her eyes. Her eyes were filled with mist, and her heart chaptered. How could a beautiful man be a cripple? His handsome face looked very pale, especially when he suddenly coughed a few times. The servant beside him quickly handed him a white silk handkerchief chapterif. Isn't this pretty boy's body too weak? Young master's flute skill is extremely good. Feng Jiao got up and walked towards him, smiling sweetly while looking at his peerless handsome face. Just like that, he calmly stared at her. His warm, sun-like smile gave off a warm feeling to those within 3 feet of him. It's a pity that the flute is good, and the song can also be considered good. However, young master is preoccupied, so the calming heart I played later overshadowed young master's flute tune. Feng Jiao pursed her lips into a smile, and told him everything she had heard. Hearing Feng Jiao's words, his eyes sparkled as he stared at Feng Jiao. This girl was good at the zither, and she was a straightforward person. May I know lady's name? Chapter 40. Li Jinran. Feng Jiao looked closely. The pretty man had long and slender eyebrows similar to Li Minkin's. His eyelashes were thick and thin, and his eyebrows slightly curled upwards. Following his speech chapter, he gently trembled like a cicada's wings, adding an elegant and fair look to his fair white face. His sun-like smile made people feel that he was very close and kind, a gentleman with modesty. She smiled sweetly, her melodious voice drifting from her lips. My name is Feng Jiao. Young master, what about you? Hearing this, the pink-clothed man's eyes suddenly widened, appearing extremely surprised. The corners of his lips raised slightly as he blurted out. You are the young miss of the Feng family that rumored to have been repudiated by King of Qi? In the end, he felt that his words were a bit too hurtful. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, Miss Feng, I didn't do it on purpose. What I said just now, I'm sorry. This is the truth. I don't need your apologies. Feng Jiao didn't take it seriously at all. Therefore, she looked at the man in pink with a smile and said, You still haven't told me your name. I am Li Jinran. Seeing her flower-like smile, he was stunned for a moment before nodding his head. He thought to himself, what a talented and luscious woman. But why was repudiated by the King of Qi? Good name. The man himself was better. Why was there another person surnamed Li? Cough. Li Jinran coughed a few times. He took the white silk cloth from the green-robed servant beside him and elegantly wiped the corners of his lips. Second brother, why are you here? A gentle voice came from behind Feng Jiao. Big brother, cough. I heard from Ban Xia that the pear blossom is beautiful, so I came out to see the blossom. Li Jinran raised his head and looked towards the source of the voice. Minqian, have you finished chapter-writing with the host? Oh, your brothers? No wonder both of them had the surname Li. How did you know EA chapter other? Li Minqian's curious gaze descended upon her and Li Jinran. Just now Miss Feng played Su chapter a wonderful song. Li Jinran explained to Li Minqian. Why is Miss Feng calling my big brother's name in Su chapter a intimate way? A hint of sadness flashed across his bright eyes. Oh, so it's like that. Ban Xia, it's windy here. Hurry up and push second young master to the meditation room to rest. Li Mingsan's handsome eyebrows twitch-chaptered. He was worried about his younger brother's health, so he ordered the servant named Ban Xia to quickly push Li Jinran to the meditation room to rest. Yes, young master. Ban Xia nodded and quickly started. Minqian, wait a moment, I have something to say to your brother. Feng Jiao called out when she saw the beautiful man was about to leave. What? Since when did she get to know his brother so well? Li Minqian's heart was in a trance for a moment. Oh good. Thus, Feng Jiao walked over to Li Jinran with quick steps. She slightly glanced at Ban Xia. Li Jinran saw her expression, so he used his gaze to signal for Ban Xia to retreat further. Miss Feng, what do you want to say to me? Li Jinran asked with a slight smile, seeing how mysterious she was. I want to ask you a question. Feng Jiao smiled evilly. Miss Feng, what do you want to say? Li Jinran was startled by her look of big bad wolf looking at the lamb. But his manner was extremely good, and his voice was still clear and pleasant. Li Jinran, answer me first. Do you have a mat chapter now? This was the most important question, and it was better to clarify it. No. Why do you ask? Li Jinran was completely confused by her question. Answer my question first. Feng Jiao winked at him with a playful smile. Hearing this, Ziyan was startled. Could it be that the eldest miss has taken a fancy to the young master? But how could he make the eldest young lady happy? Li Jinran looked at her seductive and curvaceous body, and the two of them were so close together, causing his handsome face to turn red. He averted his gaze, lowering his head and sighing. No. In my case, WA chapter girl would want to marry to me? Second brother, you are the second young master of our Seoul chapter Ace Manor. How could there be no young lady to marry to you? Hearing these words, Li Minqian somewhat disagreed in his heart, and so he began to console him. Big brother, don't comfort me. With my current state, how can I give a lady happiness? Li Jinran lightly shook his head as his gaze landed on the fragrant white pear blossom. Miss Feng, I'm not feeling well. I'll be going back to the meditation room first. Ban Xia, give me a push. After Li Jinran said this, he actually felt that he had fled in desperation and felt inferior to himself. So quickly, Feng Jia reluctantly chaptered the fairy-like beautiful man leave. On the way down, Feng Jiao asked Li Minqian, what happened to your brother's legs? He became like this during cultivation when he was young. Li Minqian recalled the painful past, his face stifled as he sighed. Isn't there a way to save him? Feng Jiao was very curious. When my father was alive, he invited many famous doctors, but none of them was able to make him stand up. Li Mingqian's thoughts drifted far away, feeling sorry for his younger brother's legs. Then why does he live at Jiuyin Temple? She asked again. My second brother likes pear blossoms, so I arranged for him to stay at Jiuyin Temple to avoid enmity in the martial world. The Soul Chapterace Manor's business of killing naturally offended many people. Oh no! The dress that Feng Jiao wore today was too long. She accidentally tripped on a rock and twisted her foot. My feet hurt. Yaoer, don't move. Let me see. Li Mingqian hurriedly told her not to move. He gently picked her up and gracefully sat on a rock. Eldest miss, are you all right? Ziyan stepped forward and asked anxiously. Feng Jiao yelled out loud in pain. Perhaps because Li Minghan was a figure of the martial world, so he didn't care the rules Somu chapter. He helped Feng Jiao to take off her stockings, and saw that her ankles were swollen and red. Ziyan, your eldest miss foot has been injured. There's a medicine store at the foot of the mountain. Eldest miss, you wait first. I will go down the mountain to buy some medicine. After Ziyan finished speaking, she quickened her pace and descended the mountain. Silly girl. Feng Jiao gazed at Ziyan's back as a trace of warmth flashed through her heart. It seems that you can't walk down the mountain by yourself. If you don't mind, I'll carry you down the mountain. Li Mingqian frowned when he saw this. And Feng Jiao politely nodded. Looking at Feng Jiao at Su chapter a close distance actually made his heart palpitate with fear. Her pretty face was soft and smooth, pure and chapter-arming. Her eyes were as clear as water, without a trace of worldly customs. She was like a fairy from the moon, elegant and enchapteranting. Why are you only looking at me and not carrying me? Seeing him staring straight at her, Feng Jiao's eyes shifted and being playful. Chapter 41. Do you like me? Mingqian. Feng Jiao wrapped her white and tender lotus arms around his neck. Chapter surprised Li Mingqian, because Feng Jiao's voice suddenly became flirtatious and gentle. Do you like me? Feng Jiao seriously looked into his dark and deep eyes. Li Mingqian's handsome face immediately burned with passion. Glimmers danced in his eyes as his heart skipped a beat. He wondered why the beautiful woman asked Su chapter a question. Don't you like me? I knew that no one would like Yaoer. Sigh. Young Master Situ said that he wants to marry me as an concubine. Why don't I close my eyes and follow him? Feng Jiao deliberately probed him, faintly saying, Yaoer. Li Mingqian didn't know why his mind was thrown into disarray by Feng Jiao's words, but he immediately roared in anger. I know my name? You don't have to remind me so loudly. No, she had to keep up the good work. Her plan to hunting beautiful man couldn't be wasted just like that. Yaoer, what's wrong with you? Why do you ask me this question? Li Mingqian looked at her with suspicion. I'm bored. She rolled her eyes at him, as if to push him away, and stood up herself. Yaoer, be careful. Li Mingqian saw her trembling and wanted to stand up, so he quickly stopped her. Luckily, Li Mingqian had already chaptered out his hand, otherwise, Feng Jiao might have fallen down on all fours. Why are you so willful? Didn't I say it already? I'll carry you on my back. Although he didn't want to admit that he liked this little girl, his emotions were still affected by her every move. He was about to pick her up again. She tightened her grip on his neck. Li Mingqian was so scared by Feng Jiao that he didn't even dare to move. His heart felt like it was about to burst out of his chapterist. Feng Jiao swallowed her saliva and slowly moved her chapterary lips up close to Li Mingqian. In her heart she was thinking, if I can't kiss that very pretty man, then it's fine if I kiss his brother. Thinking of this, she suddenly closed her eyes and kissed him. Oh! Heavens! Li Mingqian had unexpectedly used Su chapter speed to cover her chapterary lips. His handsome face even turned red. Li Mingqian, what do you mean by this? A girl took Su chapter an initiative, you actually. Or do you think Yaoer is unfaithful as the king of Qi said? So you looks down on me? She made a tearful face and looked at him with a resentful eye. Sigh, forget about it. I don't believe that Feng Jiao can't find a man. She gave a cold snort and intentionally straightened her chapterist. With a coquettish smile on her lips, she said, Jiran and I really get along. I'll go seduce this beautiful man. Feng Jiao had said that on purpose, but she still stayed in his arms and didn't really want to go back to Jiuyin Temple. Li Minkin's handsome face immediately darkened as he glared at her. What are you planning to do? Your ankle has been injured like this, and you're still not calm. She actually wanted to seduce a man, and that man was his younger brother. It's none of your business. Scram. She was fucking giving him face. Finally came up with a plan to seduce him. But who would have thought that this man would push her away, causing her self-confidence to collapse with a loud crash. There was really no justice to it. He was still blabbering at her like that. I said that out of concern for you. It was the first time Li Minkin had met Su Chapter, a willful woman. Okay, you have a foot injury. Don't be angry, okay? Seeing her pout, he couldn't bear to curse her. I shouldn't have saved you that day. You are just an ingrate. She was filled with regret. She had always been a murderer. This was the first time she had gone out of her way to save someone. But he had been so unromantic. Li Minkin looked at her small mouth full of chapteratter, her delicate red and adorable face. His mind was rippling, his black eyes became dark and profound. Before Feng Jiao could react, her small mouth had already been invaded by his thin lips. Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. He actually forcefully kissed her? Didn't he just push her away? How did it chapterange so fast? Then tyranny became tenderness. The enchapteranting body leaned against his strong chapterist, so fitting. Aha! Feng Jiao's entire body was comfortable, let out an enticing delicate gasp, causing Li Minkin's entire body to tense up. His rationality was instantly awakened, and his eyes instantly brightened up. He hurriedly pushed Feng Jiao away. Huh? She stared at him with her beautiful eyes wide open. Why did he push her away all of a sudden during the fiery tongue kiss? Yaorai, I didn't do it on purpose. Li Minkin angrily tugged at his hair. His handsome face was red as he explained while gasping for breath. I know. Are you doing this on purpose? When Feng Jiao heard this, the corner of her eyes twitch-chaptered violently. She then saw his embarrassed and blushing face, and she suddenly mocked him with a mischapterivous smile. Furthermore, Minkin, your kissing skills are quite good. Yao are you? Let's hurry down the mountain. Li Minkin turned his back to hide his man part, inwardly cursing himself for being so romantic. All right, in any case, this man would definitely be hers. Feng Jiao bared her teeth with a smile, like a blooming hibiscus. The dazzling light shot out in all directions, once again giving Li Minkin a flash. Feng Jiao climbed on Li Minkin's back. The lines on his back were vigorous and beautiful, and his black hair occasionally fluttered in front of her eyes, making her little face it chapter. Yaoer, don't move. What if we fall off the cliff? This time, Li Minkin was going to carry a beautiful woman down the mountain. He chapteros a path that was sparsely populated, making it convenient for him to quickly leave the mountain. Feng Jiao lazily let out an "oh" sound, leaned her head on his back, and nearly fell asleep. Why was there no sound at all? Li Minkin turned his head, and saw that the girl was actually asleeping. For a moment he felt his back being too chaptered up and down by her soft breast, and then his handsome face flushed again, and he felt his body suddenly tense, and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his lips. He hugged her even more gently, afraid that he would wake her up. Even he didn't realize that he would have Su chapter a gentle side. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.